SDPB brings you closer to your government. With gavel-to-gavel coverage of the South Dakota legislature and in-depth reporting from Pierre. Good, useful, and full of wonder. SDPB. From early learners to lifelong students, SDPB inspires curiosity through trusted educational programs and resources for every stage of life. Good, useful, and full of wonder. SDPB. When South Dakotans need reliable information, SDPB is there providing updates and coverage that keep our communities safe and connected. Good, useful, and full of wonder. SDPB. SDPB celebrates South Dakota's student athletes with live coverage of SDHSAA state championships, sharing the excitement of hometown heroes. SDPB. Good, useful, and full of wonder. From choir to debate to theater, SDPB shines a spotlight on South Dakota's talented students through SDHSAA All-State Fine Arts Programming. Good, useful, and full of wonder. SDPB. Every day, SDPB connects South Dakotans with stories that inform, inspire, and bring us together. SDPB, good, useful, and full of wonder. SDPB is your home for fact-based journalism, connecting South Dakotans with news they can trust and stories that matter. Good, useful, and full of wonder. SDPB. From children's programs to in-depth documentaries, SDPB sparks curiosity and lifelong learning in every South Dakotan. SDPB. Good, useful, and full of wonder. SDPB brings South Dakotans together, telling the stories that unite small towns, big ideas, and the people who make our state shine. Good, useful, and full of wonder. SDPB. SDPB shares the voices and experiences of South Dakotans, preserving our stories, our culture, and our sense of place. SDPB, good, useful, and full of wonder. As South Dakota's public media network, SDPB serves everyone with transparency, integrity, and commitment to open access. Good, useful, and full of wonder. SDPB. SDPB helps shape South Dakota's future by educating, informing, and inspiring the next generation of thinkers, leaders, and creators. SDPB. Good, useful, and full of wonder. SDPB serves South Dakota through an interconnected communication system that is on 24/7, 365. The first place for Amber Alerts, public safety announcements, and EAS messages. SDPB keeps public servants and citizens informed. Good, useful, and full of wonder. SDPB.
Good morning. Welcome to the House Committee on Appropriations. I'm Mike Derby. I'm the chair of the House Committee on Appropriations. I'd like to welcome everybody today. And as we do every day in appropriations, we start with the Pledge of Allegiance, and I'll start that.
Of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. Would like to welcome all of our listeners on South Dakota Public Broadcasting. And reminders, please make sure your cell phones are off. And lobbyists must be wearing badges for the organizations they're representing. Anybody that testifies must sign the guest register, and the pages can help you do that. But if you do testify, you do need to sign the register. And all testimony and questions will move and be addressed through the chair. At this time, I'd like to ask Secretary to call the roll.
Representatives Auk,
Here.
Casson, Colbeck,
Here.
Mucky, Moore,
Here.
Sharda,
Here.
Jorgensen, Norstrup,
Here.
Derby.
Here.
8 present, 1 absent.
Okay, thank you. And are there any minutes to approve? Oh, Representative
Chair?
Auk. Yes.
I move to approve the minutes of Friday, February 6th.
We have a motion by Representative Auk, seconded by Representative Moore. Discussion on the motion.
No discussion. The House Appropriations passed House Bill 1018 and deferred House Bill 1082 and House Bill 1098.
Okay. Thank you. We have a motion by Representative Auk, second by Representative Moore. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. All right, thank you. And then we'll introduce pages. Is there a page in the room? Oh, they're at the breakfast with the governor. Good for them. All right. Are there any introductions, personal privileges, or announcements at this time? Okay, seeing none. We're going to move on to our bill hearings. And the first bill up is House Bill 1082, establish parameters for the reimbursement of school districts that provide free or reduced price meals to students. Proponents. Good morning, Representative. Please introduce yourself.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the committee, Representative Kane Whitman, District 15. You have in front of you the first of three very easy bills this committee hearing. This bill passed House Education Committee on a 13-1 vote with a due pass recommendation. That decisive support reflects a growing recognition that this policy is not about ideology, but instead about practical governance in our state. I would like to acknowledge up front that questions around responsibility and the role of government are fair. I believe that feeding children is first and foremost, and nothing in this bill changes that. What this bill addresses is a financial reality. The state mandates school attendance. We fund the buildings, the transportation, the teachers, and the curriculum because we understand that education is essential to our economy and our workforce. Nutrition is not separate from that mission. A student who is hungry cannot focus, cannot retain information, and cannot fully participate in the system that we require them to attend. Whether we reimburse these meals or not, the food is still served, the staff are still paid, and the costs are still incurred. Right now, those costs are absorbed unevenly through local district budgets, private fundraising, and community charity. That patchwork approach creates inconsistency and places pressure on districts that are already stretched razor thin. House Bill 1082 creates a predictable, transparent reimbursement structure. It ensures districts are not subsidizing what is ultimately a statewide educational objective. It is not an expansion of bureaucracy. Instead, it is a stabilization of an existing obligation. If we expect outcomes from our education system, we must ensure that the basic conditions for learning are in place. This bill recognizes that reality in a fiscally responsible way. I respectfully ask for your favorable consideration and stand by for questions.
Thank you. Additional proponents for House Bill 1082. Additional proponents. Good morning. Welcome. Introduce yourself.
Morning, Mr. Chair. Mike Bockerny. I'm the CEO of the EDPA of South Dakota. I'm also here this morning representing the South Dakota Association for the Education of Young Children and also the Aberdeen Development Corporation and the Aberdeen Chamber of Commerce. We rise in support of this bill. For us, this bill is fundamentally about student success and workforce stability. The data clearly shows that children who are equally well-fed are healthier, more focused, and better able to learn. When schools can ensure consistent access to meals, parents have greater confidence that their children's basic needs are being met, which directly supports workforce participation, attendance, performance, and output. We feel this bill is a practical investment in kids, families, and the workforce of South Dakota. Strong schools support strong families, and strong families support a very strong economy. We respectfully ask for your support of this bill. Thank you.
Thank you. Additional proponents. House Bill 1082.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. My name is Lindsay Ryder-Rapp, and I'm a registered lobbyist for the South Dakota Advocacy Network for Women. We also support House Bill 1082. The network supports efforts like this to support student health and learning by addressing food insecurity. The school lunch initiative is a high priority for our members as it aims to not only improve child nutrition, but also support our working families. And for those reasons, we do support it. Thank you.
Thank you. Additional proponents. Welcome, and please introduce yourself. Thank you.
Good morning, Honorable Chair. There we go. Good morning, Honorable Chair and committee members. My name is Derek Marks. I'm from Wagner, South Dakota. I'm a previous school board member and tribal committee member for the Yankton Sioux Tribe and a youth advocate. I'm here this morning because I want to first express my just appreciation for the responsible stewardship this body does consistently demonstrates in funding our education system. I believe your decisions are not made frivolously, and I believe there's deliberate care for our taxpayer dollars. from this room. As we discussed HB 1082 this morning and on appropriations, we recognize that the state supports our schools in vital programs such as transportation, just like Representative Whitman had said, special education, teacher compensation, safety initiatives, and other essential programs that are vital to our students' education. These investments are designed to remove barriers and ensure students have a meaningful access to a strong education. In South Dakota, I believe we pride ourselves on being responsible stewards of taxpayer dollars. We make strategic investments because we believe in long-term growth and strengthening communities. These investments established by your predecessors, and you as a current committee, are valued and trusted by our citizens of South Dakota, knowing that you believe in the investment in education is an investment in ourselves. Our current investments, educational investments, cannot be fully utilized or fully effective when students sit in a classroom carrying the quiet burden of an unpaid lunch debt or the physical distraction of hunger. A child worrying about a meal cannot fully focus on learning, and a parent concerned on spending time with their child as compared to working a second shift to pay a lunch debt does not support our state's great name, which is Dakota, which actually means ally in our language. Dakota means ally. Investing in student nutrition strengthens and protects the much larger investment we already make in education. It ensures that the dollars we spend on teachers, transportation, and curriculum and the facilities produce the best possible outcomes. Supporting HB 1082 supports hardworking families without creating long-term dependency. It provides temporary relief so parents can focus on parenting and children can focus on learning. And it reinforces dignity, stability, and opportunity. From a fiscal standpoint, this bill also makes sense. It can reduce administrative burdens on the school by minimizing eligibility determinations, unpaid lunch debt, and costly collection efforts. I believe this committee values a strong work ethic, strong families, and a strong community. I hope that you vote in favor of HB 1082 because it supports those principles and it supports hardworking families and strengthens the local schools that develop our next generation. Excuse me. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for your comments. Additional proponents. Good morning, welcome. Please introduce yourself.
Good morning, Chairman and members of the committee. My name is Jesse Severson. I'm here representing Hungry Hearts, which I am the vice president of. Hungry Hearts is a nonprofit in Sioux Falls that makes sure every child in the city of Sioux Falls and surrounding area has a opportunity at a hot school lunch. Today I want to focus primarily on the fiscal responsibility, the limited scope, and the accountability built into the House Bill 1082. This bill does one specific and narrow thing. It allows the state of South Dakota to cover the reduced price portions of the school meals for students who already qualify under existing federal income guidelines. It does not expand eligibility. It does not create a new entitlement program. It does not send money to the parents. It goes directly to the schools where there's a clear oversight and accountability. Eligibility is determined only after a parent or guardian completes the federal required free and reduced price meal application and schools verify income. Once approved, the state would simply reimburse the school for the reduced price copay, typically just cents per meal, so the child receives the same meal without balance accumulating. The estimated annual cost is approximately $600,000 to $650,000, with about $615,000 projected for this school year. In context for the state budget, this is a small, controlled, and predictable investment tied directly to verified need, not broad assumptions. Even if participants were to grow by 5 to 10% due to economic shifts, the cost would remain well under $715,000 annually. This is manageable within our existing education funding structure. Importantly, this is not an open-ended liability. It is a measurable, accountable, and limited scope. I share the perspective not only as a nonprofit representative, but of someone who has personally lived in that gap. I was a young parent working full-time, sometimes more than one job, doing everything right, and still falling just above the assistance threshold, not receiving any assistance. There were times I knew there wasn't enough money in my child's account, times I hoped payday came before the embarrassment did for my child. Not because we weren't working, not because we weren't trying, but because sometimes the math just didn't stretch enough. Hungry Hearts raises private dollars to help fill these gaps in Sioux Falls and surrounding communities. We are proud of the work, but private charity alone cannot consistently address statewide structural gap. House Bill 1082 is not about expanding government broadly. It is about closing a very specific gap for students who are already qualified for assistance, particularly those just above the free lunch guidelines. From the fiscal standpoint, this is a targeted preventative investment. South Dakota already invests significant resources in education, workforce readiness, and student success. Those investments are most effective when students are able to focus and fully participate in classrooms. A modest, well-defined investment on the front end helps protect the much larger education investment we are already making. House Bill 1082 is narrow, it is accountable, it is fiscally responsible, and it strengthens the effortlessness of dollars we already spend. Thank you for your time. I'd be honored to answer any questions.
Thank you very much. Additional proponents for House Bill 1082. Welcome. Please identify yourself.
Morning, Chair. Out of respect to time, I'll trim down my testimony, but I did submit it online as well. My name is Tony Burke, Government Relations Director for the American Heart Association. Thank you for the opportunity to stand here before you today in support of House Bill 1082. On June 4th, 2024, the American Heart Association released a presidential advisory outlining a deeply concerning trajectory, and one we have the power to change if we act now. Within the next 25 years, at least 6 in 10 U.S. adults, over 184 million people, are projected to have some form of cardiovascular disease, carrying an estimated $1.8 trillion, again, $1.8 trillion annual price tag in direct and indirect costs. Between 2020 and 2050, we expect to see obesity rates rise from 43% to more than 60%, affecting over 180 million people. Adults aged 20 to 64 show the highest prevalence and fastest growth in obesity, driven in part by poor diet quality, impacting more than 70 million young adults. To put that in perspective today, the 6-year-olds in our classrooms today will be 30-year-olds in 2050. If we do nothing, they will be living in an environment where obesity and chronic disease are the norm. The cost of providing children with nutritious meals today is far less than the cost of treating preventable medical conditions 25 years from now. But there is room for optimism. Together, we can create a South Dakota where all children and families have nutrition security, the fair, stable availability and affordability of foods, which support well-being and prevent disease. A systematic review of 47 studies, 25 conducted in the United States, highlights 7 compelling reasons why healthy school meals is smart, evidence-based investment. We heard a lot of those already today. Students participate, nutrition quality improves, food insecurity decreases, academic performance improves, attendance increases. The BMI does not increase. These findings underscore healthy meals at school are not simply a cost. They are an investment, one that pays dividends, students' health, academic success, and long-term economic stability. On behalf of the statewide Advocacy and Engagement Committee of the American Heart Association and the hundreds of American Heart Association advocates across the state, I respectfully ask you to vote yes on HB 1082. This is an investment in health, success, and future of South Dakotans' children. Thank you, and I stand for questions.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Additional proponents for House Bill 1082. Good morning. Good morning. Please identify yourself.
Good morning, Mr. Chair. Thank you. My name is Dawson Lewis. I live here in Pierre, representing myself as a citizen who's interested in these issues. I've lived in Pierre 30-some years, so I've paid a lot of property taxes to the schools, a lot of sales taxes to the state. And I come today as not just as a local citizen, but as someone who at age 62 decided to start a master's of social work, eventual goal of becoming a therapist, because I figure there's a lot of old guys like me in South Dakota that want to talk to someone who looks like them. One of the things, and I bring that up because in the School of Social Work, we learn a lot about how to do research and how to evaluate research, and we learn a lot about advocating for our clients at all levels. And what brings me here today is actually have a policy advocacy class where I had to do a paper, and I picked this bill as my topic. And the term that you see a lot in the research is food insecurity. It's not necessarily kids are starving, but they're just not sure when their next meal is going to come. And there's, as already been mentioned, there's a lot of research on how that insecurity affects them. One of the studies I read looked at kids who in third grade were in food insecurity and tracked them over time. And even those who had left food insecurity, but let's say fifth grade, still had some of the same problems with anxiety, depression, poor academic skills, because when food insecurity hits children, it's not something that just comes and goes. It has lasting impacts, again, as many of the other speakers have said. One of the other things I found in my research is that Feeding America program, if you're familiar with that, they have an interactive map. And of all the counties in South Dakota, there's only 4 that have food insecurity levels for children of less than 12%. Almost all the counties in South Dakota, I think it was 52 if I remember right, have anywhere from 12 to 20% food insecurity for children, which means anywhere from 1 in 8 to 1 in 5 children are food insecure. And it includes Minnehaha, Pennington, Hughes, Brown, the rich counties. So this is not something that happens in an isolated place, but it is happening to our neighbors, to use a cliche. Providing better food security for children in school will not solve all the problems, but children are in school 180 some days a year. And if we can provide an environment where they can get solid meals, many school districts I know have breakfast programs, including lunch programs, that this could be an important step towards fixing the overall problems of food insecurity. The last thing I would say is, this is the first time I've ever spoken to a legislator. I didn't realize I could have uploaded this. I did bring copies if the chair is interested. Okay.
Paige, please hand those out.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. There's a QR code on the back because obviously you can't click on the links in my paper, on a paper copy. But for all these reasons and for all the things that have been said before, I would really hope that this committee would pass this out with a do pass recommendation to the full House. So thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Question for you. Could you please leave me your business card? I might need your help this session.
I'm not certified yet. Well, my wife would say I'm certifiable, but I am not certified yet.
Darn it. Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Chair.
All right. Additional proponents for 1082. Additional proponents.
Mr. Chairman, my name is Justin Bell. I'm an attorney from Fort Pierre, and I'm a registered lobbyist for South Dakota State Medical Association. South Dakota Medical Association would associate itself with a lot of the prior comments that were made that food insecurity is a healthcare issue. We would support this legislation. I would ask you to send it forward with a do pass recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you. Additional proponents.
Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, members of the committee, my name is Ryan Rolfs. I'm a registered lobbyist for the South Dakota Education Association. We want to commend Representative Whitman for her continued passion and advocacy on this issue. Very briefly, research and data shows that when kids have their basic needs met, like hunger, they're better prepared to learn and better prepared to thrive. Well-fed kids help us have healthier and more successful classrooms, and we urge your support for this bill. Thank you.
Thank you. Additional proponents. Are we ready for the online proponent? Are there any additional proponents here? Seeing none, we'll move to an online proponent. Okay, we're ready for online proponents. Mr. Sassy, would you like to start?
Very good. Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, members of the committee. My name is Coy Sassy. I'm the Chief Financial and Operations Officer of the Rapid City Area School District. I appreciate the opportunity to provide testimony on this very important topic. As you've heard at length in your testimony this morning, there are a significant number of compelling altruistic, health, and financial benefits to passing this bill, and certainly those are all real and true. I'd like to give you just a slightly deeper layer in terms of a point of view that is also very important to school districts, especially right now. And of course, that's how this bill will impact school districts financially. Reduced lunches are often a difficult area for school districts to manage. These are often families who are just above the threshold for free lunches and struggling to make ends meet. At times, that means that nutrition programs are not receiving compensation for those meals. Like any business that produces a product, districts are incurring expenses for a product produced, so not receiving compensation for that product presents a challenge. As an enterprise fund, student nutrition programs are meant to stand alone, meaning that the revenue from the program should cover all operational costs. So not being compensated for those meals presents a host of challenges, from cash flow interruptions to the ability to increase meal quality and offerings, to keeping meals affordable for all families. This issue ultimately has an impact on all students and families participating in the district's nutrition program due to the financial impact it has. Also, when families fall behind, it's very difficult for them to catch up. As that debt accumulates, it becomes more and more daunting to even attempt to chip away and becomes what we call bad debt. This creates another layer of financial impact as districts must dedicate significant resources to managing this debt. This includes communication with families, financial reporting, attempts at collection, and working with local agencies to identify alternative sources of funding to replace these missing dollars. Rapid City Area Schools has been significantly challenged by this cycle in recent years, with yearly bad debt often swelling into the $175,000 to $200,000 range. What we have learned in that time is that this cycle is unsustainable, meaning that a series of difficult choices must be made. Most recently, the district made the very difficult decision to send overdue accounts to collections as a last-ditch effort to sustainably manage the situation. As you might imagine, this was not a popular decision in our community, but one we felt was necessary. HB 1082 would guarantee revenue for this section of meals and avoid the double impact that comes from these meals going unpaid and then turning to bad debt. This certainly doesn't solve all problems, but provides a significant step forward towards a solution. By passing HB 1082, you all have the opportunity to not only serve the students of our state and provide for a basic human need that allows them to maximize their educational experience, but also provide a layer of revenue and financial stability for districts in a very challenging economic environment. On behalf of Rapid City Area Schools, I urge you to pass the bill. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I'm happy to stand by for any questions.
Thank you very much. Any additional online? And Waltman? Got it. Are there any additional online proponents for House Bill 1082? Seeing none, we will move on to opponents. Are there opponents for House Bill 1082? Good morning, welcome. Please identify yourself.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. My name is Grant Judson with the Bureau of Finance and Management. This morning you have before you House Bill 1082. Currently, the Department of Education administers a national school lunch and school breakfast program in which 144 public schools and 42 educational programs participate. Students from families with incomes between 130% and 185% of the federal poverty line level are eligible for reduced price meals. Eligible students are charged 40 cents for lunch and 30 cents for breakfast. These rates are set by the federal government and are the same guidelines used for other federal assistance programs. Our understanding of the intent is that under House Bill 1082, DOE would pay the 40 cents for lunch and 30 cents for breakfast that is charged to the students. Based on the amount of reduced price meals served in the 2024-2025 school year, this would cost $601,266 in ongoing general funds. However, it is unclear in the last paragraph if that is what would actually be required. The last paragraph states that the Department of Education shall reimburse for costs incurred, less any amount reimbursed to the federal programs. The federal government pays $4.29 or $4.31 for lunch and $2.16 or $2.64 for breakfast. If the schools have food service contracts that exceed those amounts, would the state be on the hook for the entire difference? Each school may have a different contract with different costs, so it would be impossible to calculate the actual fiscal impact this bill would have. While we understand the intention of this bill, this is a federal program, and the costs of meals are already heavily subsidized by the federal government and ultimately us as taxpayers. For these reasons, we ask that you oppose the bill. Thank you, and I will stand by for questions.
Additional opponents for House Bill 1082. Any additional opponents? Any online? No. Last call, additional opponents. This time we'll open it up for a rebuttal by the sponsor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Representative Whitman, District 15. At the end of the day, this bill is about whether we want a budgeting system that reflects our current reality. We ask our districts to meet performance standards, manage enrollment growth, recruit staff, and stretch every single dollar we give them. And yet in this area, we continually allow a known and reoccurring cost to remain structurally unstable year after year. When costs are unstable, as we heard from the CFO of the Rapid City Schools, planning suffers. And when planning suffers, so does efficiency. House Bill 1082 brings clarity where there is currently ambiguity. It allows superintendents and our school business managers to make decisions based on known numbers instead of hoping private generosity fills the gap. This is not a philosophical shift. This is management improvement in South Dakota schools. If we believe in responsible budgeting, like I know all of us do, then I believe aligning reoccurring costs with reoccurring funding sounds like good governance. I respectfully ask you for your support. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I stand by for questions.
Thank you. We'll open it up for committee questions at this time. Representative Mucky.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Question for the prime sponsor. So making sure I understand correctly, we're talking about, and in your bill, you're talking about clarifying we're covering the 70 cents per day per student, correct?
Mr. Chair, yes, we are.
Okay. Follow-up question, Mr. Chair. Making sure I understand as well, I know there's a lot of discussion about the potential impacts. Can you speak more to the data and what this may do for our students in terms of performance?
Mr. Chair, so we have actually a little bit of evidence historically from the 2 years that South Dakota schools received COVID dollars for breakfasts and lunches. And what we saw across our state, apologies, Mr. Chair, what we saw across our state was improved outcomes for students in terms of testing, improved parental involvement, and reduced truancy efforts.
I have a question. Oh, Representative Colbeck.
Thank you. I got a question for the gentleman from, I believe it's Heart to Heart, Heart to Hunger.
Mr. Chair, Hungry Hearts.
Got it. Thank you.
Please identify yourself again.
Jesse Severson, Vice President of Hungry Hearts.
I'm well aware of your organization, and I think that it's very commendable.
Thank you.
And I think you might help this committee out a little bit, and probably our listeners too, because I know you would probably like to share with them the amount of money that you have raised in the last year, and maybe you could even go back 5 years that you and your organization have donated to help with lunch programs.
Since me and my partner, Mark Fonder, started this organization 7 years ago, we have raised over $1 million and have given over $1 million to different school districts. Obviously, we're located in Sioux Falls, so we work very close with the Sioux Falls School District, who right now covers that reduced price for their students, where they can find that in their budget. I wish Gay Anderson was here to tell you how she can do that within her actual budget, but it is not sustainable for her. She has maybe one more year of money to be able to do that. And that's where we step in. And every year, we give the Sioux Falls School District a minimum of $100,000 based off of our fundraising each year that we do. And in the Harrisburg School District, we are giving them $25,000 this year for the same thing. And we try to cover that. We're talking about that gap. The gentleman, the opponent, that 135 to 180, or that 130 to 185, right? So we jump in at 185 to 210 because that's that real big gap group that, again, we're talking about not qualifying for any assistance or just qualifying for that reduced part of the assistance. Those are the people that really need the help. Those are the people that aren't eating, that we see really having that trouble with the debt that Coy had spoke about. Those are the ones that the social workers, the principals that are well in contact with these families and are talking with them on, day to day, that we have stepped up and said we would take care of 100% in the Sioux Falls School District from that 185 to 210 that gets zero assistance. So passing this bill would give us even more assistance to help that bubble gap, because then there's more money for that next bubble gap of people over that 185%.
Thank you, and I appreciate what you do. And this committee is called Appropriations, and there's a reason why, because we like numbers, okay?
Absolutely.
Or we don't like numbers, one or the other. My question would be, do you have any kind of a number of the students that, you say $100,000 to Sioux Falls, $25,000 to Harrisburg, and I'm sure there's others involved. Do you have any kind of an idea, or maybe Representative Whitman would, the number of students that are helped by your program?
I would have to look back on my emails and my data that, again, Gay Anderson would have all that information for me. I think she spoke on it in committee last month. I don't know that right offhand, but I'm guessing it's in the 2,500 to 3,000 range in the city of Sioux Falls that we help out with to make sure that they have a hot school lunch, regardless of their financial situation at home.
Thank you, and I'll go back and I'll listen to that if I need to get that number. Thank you.
Representative Casson. Thank you. I do have a question for the prime sponsor.
Mr. Chair, Representative Whitman.
Yes. Would you like to address a comment was made by an opponent about the last paragraph? Do you want to clarify what your thoughts are regarding the comments made about the last paragraph?
I certainly can. Give me one moment, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, I believe that the bill's opponent was indicating that if the school districts have a contract that is slightly higher, it may increase the fiscal note for this bill. The opponent also gave the fiscal note for this bill in his in opposition testimony, so that was a little confusing to me. I do not believe that the opponent is correct with what he said, because this would effectively tie only 30 cents for breakfast and 40 cents for lunch reimbursements to our public schools. It wouldn't be anything more than that. So I guess I'm not quite sure what the opponent was insinuating when he said that.
Okay, thank you. Any further questions from the committee? Representative Muckey.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As we're looking around at this, Representative Whitman, do you have any breakdown of where this would lay out as far as school districts? I know a lot of conversation's been had about our more urban districts, but how does this play out for rural?
Mr. Chair, so this bill would cover approximately 8% of all South Dakota public school students. We have heard a lot of testimony from Sioux Falls and Rapid City, our larger areas of population. However, we've also received letters of support from our more rural school boards across South Dakota indicating that this would be a life-saving measure for them. This is not an issue that is just faced by our larger population centers. This would truly assist every single public school and school district in South Dakota.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As maybe a follow-up for some information for the committee, if we have any general breakdowns of where this lays out district by district, would love to see more of that if we can.
I have that I can certainly bring to the committee. I can't say it off the top of my head, but I can share how this would impact each district.
Representative Northrup.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The way I understand it is there are a group of people that are free, and then there are a group of people that are reduced, and then there are a group of people that are full price. And as I look at that, the cut line is 185%, and that is the line. 185% of poverty is the difference between a $4 meal and a 40-cent meal. So my question is, the bill today solves the problem for the 40-cent people, but what does it do for the $4 people?
Mr. Chair, I attempted to solve that problem 4 years ago, and that bill handily died in its first committee hearing. I truly believe that the government should be responsible for the nutritional needs of our students, all students, not just those within the reduced category. However, I do not think I could get that bill passed in the South Dakota legislature. So we have scaled this back as much as we can to try and help the most vulnerable and poverty-stricken families in South Dakota. I would love to provide support to those families above the 185% of the federal poverty line. However, I don't believe that would be something we'd be able to get across the finish line in South Dakota.
Mr. Chair, follow-up. Would there be an estimate, assume we were to do that, do what, you apparently had a bill years ago that did that. Was there a cost estimate as to what it would cost to accomplish it from top to bottom?
Mr. Chair, it was $26.2 million.
Thank you.
Representative Colbeck.
Thank you. I got a question for the good representative. You know, we hear that if you're hungry, you don't learn, and I can understand that. Do you have any statistics because of the Hungry Hearts helping out with the Sioux Falls School District and the Harrisburg School District at all? Have you communicated to the school district or have communication from them that because of their program over the last 5 years that the children that are receiving this subsidy or this free, not free lunch, but this lunch and breakfast, has there been a increase in their, I'm not talking grade point, but I mean, is there a level, has it gone from a certain level in their reading and their math and that? Have they communicated that back to you as well? Because like I said, we're appropriators and we like numbers.
Mr. Chair, I have not received that data that maybe the school district would have shared with Hungry Hearts, but I would just refer back to my earlier statement about the 2 years that we had COVID dollars where we saw an increase in test scores, parental involvement, and a reduction in truancy.
Okay. Additional questions from the committee? Any additional questions? Okay, seeing none, I'm going to close public testimony. And as we heard the term fiscal note, basically that's a request to have the Legislative Research Council do a formal fiscal note or report on the dollars. I know BFM provided a number, but we need, as appropriators, we need a fiscal note. So anything that's affecting our general funds, we have that and we can work through the process. So at this time, I'm going to formally request a fiscal note on House Bill 1082, and this will be, action will be deferred until we receive this fiscal note. Okay? And I did speak to the sponsor prior to the hearing. That's the path we were going to go down. Very good. All right. That's on the record. So moving on to House Bill 1098. And then just to level set, we do have a half hour left of our committee meeting, so I'll let you manage the time on the next two bills. And prior to going into this, I've got the pages in the room. Could you please come up and introduce yourselves? And tell us where you're from and any hobbies and what your future plans are.
Hi, good morning. My name is Ella Vandersnick. I'm from Willow Lake. I plan to go to SDSU for elementary education. And then one of my hobbies is jewelry making.
Very good.
Hi, I'm Taryn Torsney. I'm from Tyndall, South Dakota. I just signed on to the Army National Guard, and one of my hobbies is riding horse.
Hooah. Glad you're here. Okay, moving on. House Bill 1098 amends certain provisions pertaining to special education funding. Good morning.
Mr. Chair, Representative Whitman, District 15, your second easy bill of the morning. I bring before you House Bill 1098. This bill makes targeted, fiscally responsible updates to how South Dakota funds students who receive special education services. It does not create a new program. It simply modernizes the framework that we already have, so funding more accurately reflects the actual cost of serving students that have significant needs. This issue is deeply personal to me. My younger brother has been nonverbal and has used a wheelchair his entire life, and I grew up watching how critical properly trained staff, early intervention, and stable funding structures are, not just for the student, but for the entire family. Families in South Dakota deserve a system that works as effectively and predictably as possible. 1098 updates disability categories, clarifies funding levels, and improves equity, particularly for our small and rural districts that can experience significant financial strain when even one high-needs student enrolls. It also allows districts to use up to 15% of special education funds for early intervention services. Early intervention is not just good practice, it is cost effective. Addressing needs early can reduce the intensity and the expense of services to the state later. This is a targeted adjustment designed to better align funding with reality, strengthen predictability for districts, and support students in a thoughtful and responsible way. I respectfully ask for your support of House Bill 1098, and I'm happy to answer questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Additional proponents for House Bill 1098. Additional proponents. We have an online proponent. Welcome. Please introduce yourself.
Good morning, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. Thank you for the opportunity to speak today. My name is Monica Waltman, and I serve as the Director of Special Services in the Douglas School District in Box Elder, South Dakota. I am testifying today on behalf of myself and from my practitioner perspective. I also recognize that this proposal, as well as the one before, has fiscal implications and that the committee is probably going to appropriately seek additional analysis, but my testimony today is focused on the structural alignment question. House Bill 1098 was brought forward to address a structural misalignment that's developed over many years within the special education funding formula. This bill does not create any new mandates. It does not expand eligibility. It doesn't change the index factor, and it doesn't alter the rebasing process. It raises a structural question. Does the current level structure still reflect the intensity of services being delivered today? Rebasing adjusts funding within existing categories based on prior expenditures. That process works exactly how it was designed. However, rebasing doesn't evaluate whether the structure of those categories still aligns with service intensity. If service delivery has evolved within a category over time, rebasing smooths expenditures, but it doesn't correct a structural alignment. This bill does not reduce inflationary pressure. Inflation in special ed is driven by staffing markets, contracted services, placements, and student complexity. Those pressures exist regardless of this legislation. House Bill 1098 addresses where that pressure actually shows up and whether transparently in the formula or indirectly through general fund shifts and operational adjustments at the district level. I recognize the legislature's focus on property tax restraint. I respect that priority. My concern is that when structural misalignment persists, the cost does not disappear, it shifts. Districts absorb it through delayed hiring, increased caseloads, or general fund transfers. I also appreciate the legislature is considering tools like Senate Bill 106 to strengthen the Extraordinary Cost Fund. That addresses volatility in high-cost years. House Bill 1098 addresses structural alignment within the base formula. Those are distinct but related policy conversations. If this is not the right mechanism or timing, I can respect that too. My request is simply the alignment issue not be dismissed as a spending request alone. This formula has remained largely unchanged for 25 years while service delivery has evolved considerably. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you very much. Any additional online proponents? Nope. Any additional proponents in the room? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to opponents. Good morning. Please identify yourself.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. My name is Grant Judson with the Bureau of Finance and Management. This morning you have before you House Bill 1098. This bill would amend several of the disability level definitions in the state aid to special education formula. Currently, South Dakota has 6 different disability categories in the state aid to special education formula. The most significant change occurs in the definition for a level 2 disability. Currently, a level 2 disability is defined as a cognitive disability or emotional disorder. This bill would add the disability category of other health impaired to the level 2 disability definition. Currently, students with other health impairments fall into the level 1 disability category. The per student allocation for the level 1 and level 2 categories in the governor's recommended budget is $7,874 and $15,957 respectively. To address the changing costs of providing special education to students, every 2 years each disability category is rebased to align with actual costs the school district incurs. Additionally, the disability levels are already increased each year by the inflationary index provided to state aid. Additionally, the Extraordinary Cost Fund is also available for providing extraordinary expenses incurred in providing special education. The Extraordinary Cost Fund is in place to provide funding for those extraordinary expenses incurred in special education. There are 3 types of applications that can be given by a school district: high-cost program, high-cost student, and supplemental aid. Currently, $4 million of the state aid to special education appropriation is set aside annually for Extraordinary Cost Fund. There's a maximum amount of $5.5 million for the appropriation plus the carryover amount. By shifting more students to level 2, this change in definition will require approximately $37.3 million in ongoing general funds. To put that into perspective, 1% of inflation for the big 3, Medicaid, state aid to education, and state employees, is approximately $24.6 million in ongoing general funds. In addition to the ongoing general funds needed for House Bill 1098, the change in definition would also require an additional $16.5 million in property taxes. That's $5.3 million in ag, $7 million in owner-occupied, and $4.3 million in commercial. While we are supportive of special education, this bill has a significant fiscal impact, and there's other resources in place that allow for schools to access additional funding to support special education needs. For these reasons, we ask that you oppose the bill. Thank you, and I will stand by for questions.
Thank you. Additional opponents? Any additional opponents? Any additional opponents to House Bill 1098? Okay, seeing none, rebuttal by the prime sponsor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Representative Whitman. Members of the committee, I appreciate the Bureau of Finance and Management's concern, but this bill is about aligning our funding formula with the reality that our districts are facing. Moving other health impaired from level 1 to level 2 reflects the actual intensity and cost of services that many of these students require. The current level 1 allocation does not match the supports being delivered on the ground, which are much closer to the level 2 allocation. And while allocations are already increasing annually by the index factor, that adjustment simply maintains purchasing power. It does not fix a structural misclassification. The extraordinary cost fund was designed for rare, high-cost cases, not as a backstop to fill an entire disability category that may be underfunded at its base. If districts are consistently absorbing these costs or leaning on extraordinary funds, that signals a formula problem. The projected $37.3 million that BFM assumes would create entirely new costs, but these students are already being served and those expenses are already existing in our local school budgets. This bill does not create new obligations. It funds them more honestly and transparently. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Open it up for committee questions. Representative Colbeck.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I got a question for Representative Whitman. I actually met with our school district in Sioux Falls, and the way I had it explained to me, and I understood that if you're moving a child from 11-2 to 11-1, and it's a 2-year type program, moving them students to level. They were telling me that if there's extra cost involved this year, which there probably will be, and extra cost next year, but after a couple of years, that those levels will level out, and that the cost of this particular program, it would level out for the school districts, and it would be at a neutral cost to them. So my question is, if you move those students from a level 2 to a level 1, and you're taking money from the level 2 to the level 1, because some of them can probably do that eventually that'll all balance out, or if you can explain that to me. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, I may have to defer to my expert proponent online, Monica Waltman. I cannot answer that, unfortunately.
Ms. Waltman, online, would you like to answer that question? Representative Colbeck, you want to re-ask the question?
If you're moving students from level 2 to level 1, the cost would, on level 1 disability is $7,650,000 according to this year, and then level 2 is $16,759,000. But if you move those kids up, then eventually, if you get more students in the level 1 program, eventually that cost would balance out. And you talked about a 2-year type program. So would that happen in this and make it relatively neutral after a couple of years as far as funding?
Well, I did much of our research when we were speaking about this with Representative Whitman was basically over the last 2 decades of that OHI category. I will say that category has leveled out, but there was a time where level 1 categories, specifically, like students with specific learning disabilities, that was the largest number of the average child count. And over the last 2 decades, the OHI category or other health impairment has had a significant increase, but that has leveled out over the last 3 years too. So much of the discussion has been around the fact that OHI and SLD have been competing in numbers, but the services required for students under other health impairment oftentimes far outweigh what's necessary for somebody with a specific learning disability, because those are the kids under other health impairment, Representative Whitman and I have the same cold or something. Students with, ADHD or significant executive functioning, I'm probably going to get in the weeds here, so I'll try not to do that. And because there hasn't been a structural alignment over the last few years, that's kind of where this conversation started. So that's not technically, I guess, really answering your question, because I'm honestly not a business manager. We've really just looked at the trend data and and why, when there was such a significant uptick in the OHI category specifically, hasn't this been looked at or adjusted over time? So to think that this is going to be solved in one legislative session in one bill is probably, I mean, that's foolish, and I'm not naive enough to think that, but certainly the discussion needs to happen because those kids can come with significant needs, and the staff required to serve those students just get funded out of general fund shifts. And with federal dollars being as weak as they are, it does end up falling on the state for that compensation. Does that help?
Yeah, but I appreciate that, but I just wanted, like our school district, they're very much aware of this here and what you're trying to do here. And so I went and visited with them, and they tried to help me out as much as possible. And thanks for your answer. Okay.
Thank you. Representative Casson.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. A question for Representative Whitman. Thank you for bringing this, and thank you for shedding light on, special education in South Dakota. I guess to my role on the Appropriations Committee is to create a roadmap to try and balance our budget and make sure that we do this. So we're saying today that that this particular bill would cost $37.3-ish million for the changes that you propose. We have last week we increased the revenue estimates by $30 million we're talking ongoing revenue. So, we haven't even increased the revenue enough to cover for what this would actually cost, and that's before we even talk about the big three or FQHCs or like emergency hospitals or things like that. So other things that other people have is, priorities within the budget. So I'm just curious, as we sit here and say, as we sit here and look at this, how do we balance this?
Mr. Chair, I do not envy your work on appropriations. I would just say that to all of you on this committee. Special education is not optional. It's legal, and in my opinion, it's also a moral obligation that we have. And the students that are affected by this change are already in our classrooms. They are already receiving services, and they're already generating real costs for our school districts. And when our funding formula continually understates those costs, the burden does not disappear. It shifts onto local property taxpayers and squeezes general education budgets. This legislation is about aligning funding with actual service intensity so that districts aren't forced to quietly subsidize a statewide responsibility. At the end of the day, I think it's about fairness and transparency and making sure that we're honest about what it takes to support kids with complex needs in South Dakota. All of that to say, how do you choose? We have a number of worthy and valuable bills that would support South Dakotans across our state. I don't envy how you will make that decision, but I do believe this is a worthwhile bill to support. Thank you.
Follow up.
Yeah. So we're not disputing that it's $37.3 million to actually make this change.
Mr. Chair, I do not believe we have an actual fiscal note, but hopefully that will be requested following this bill hearing.
One more. Yeah, and just one more thing. Like I to the good representative's point across the room, I believe if we did this, we would be increasing the ongoing floor by depending what the fiscal note is. We're going to increase the ongoing floor by, let's just use our number we have today, $37 million. So then next year, when we come back, we're already at an elevated $37 million, which would actually be even more elevated than our current ongoing budget would sustain. So I just struggle how we're going to reconcile this.
Mr. Chair, I would, to your point, I think I would just say yes, this would increase the ongoing base, but special education will always be an ongoing obligation. We will have to tackle this conversation at some point, and I can't imagine it will get any cheaper a year from now or several years down the road. At the very least, I would like us to have a conversation about how we can fix this moving forward to make sure special education students are receiving the services they need.
Representative Mucky.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I got a question for Mr. Judson from BFM. If you could, I know the number you put out there for us. Could you explain how you arrived at the calculation of the delta between what we're putting in today versus how you arrived at your figure?
Please introduce yourself.
Mr. Chair, excuse me, Grant Judson with the Bureau of Finance and Management. So when we coming up with that $37.3 million cost for that's basically those students that are currently in level 1 that would now be in level 2, and the delta between the level 1 per student allocation and the level 2 per student allocation.
Just to make sure I'm clarifying my question as well. So 37.3 in new dollars, not current spending, correct?
Mr. Chair, Grant Judson with the Bureau of Finance and Management, that is $37.3 million in ongoing general funds above and beyond the governor's recommended budget.
Got it. Thank you for the clarification.
Okay, any further questions? Any further questions from the committee? Going to close public testimony, and as chairman, I am going to request a fiscal note for House Bill 1098. And that will defer action until a later date. So moving on to House Bill 1123, establish a pilot program to provide benefits for menstrual hygiene products and diapers for individuals who receive temporary assistance for needy families, otherwise known as TANF, and to make an appropriations therefore. Welcome.
Mr. Chair, we have reached our third and final bill of this committee hearing. Representative Caden Whitman, District 15. Thank you for hearing House Bill 1123. This bill establishes a small, time-limited pilot program to provide targeted support for menstrual hygiene products and diapers to families receiving TANF. It is not a permanent expansion of benefits. It includes a sunset clause and a required report back to the legislature so we can evaluate cost, implementation, and measurable outcomes before considering any future action. I want to acknowledge the concerns that these items can technically already be purchased with TANF dollars, and that is true, but the reality is that TANF benefits are extremely limited. For a family of 3 in South Dakota, the monthly benefit is modest, and those dollars are already allocated to rent, utilities, food, and transportation. Diapers and menstrual products, while essential, often become one more trade-off in an already impossible budget. This pilot is about evaluating whether a targeted intervention improves stability, clean diapers support daycare attendance and workforce participation, access to menstrual products support school attendance and health. These are not ancillary expenses. They directly affect our broader investments in education and workforce readiness. From a fiscal perspective, this is a contained pilot program with defined parameters. It allows the department flexibility in implementation and gives this body real data on cost and impact. If it proves ineffective or overly burdensome, it sunsets. If it proves beneficial, we will have evidence to guide future policy. Appropriations is about making thoughtful investments, and this bill gives us a modest opportunity to test whether addressing 2 specific unmet needs strengthens family stability and improves outcome for children. I respectfully ask for your support of House Bill 1123, and I'm happy to answer questions. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Additional proponents for House Bill 1123. Additional proponents.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. My name is Lindsay Ryder-Rapp. I'm a registered lobbyist for the South Dakota chapter of the American College of Obstetricians and Gynecologists. We too support House Bill 1123. We support efforts like this to promote overall health and well-being by removing the financial barriers that exist for many women and families and accessing these products. And so for these reasons, we would ask you to support House Bill 1123. Thank you.
Thank you. Additional proponents. House Bill 1123.
Mr. Chairman, member of the committees, my name is Justin Bell. I'm an attorney from Fort Pierre. I'm a registered lobbyist for the South Dakota State Medical Association. First, I want to thank Representative Whitman for bringing this legislation. Unfortunately, there's a stigma around having conversations that relate to certain women's health issues, including these topics. That stigma doesn't go away unless we talk about them and the health care consequences as it relates to this. there is, specifically as it relates to menstrual hygiene products, there is a significant cost that goes for those for indigent folks that would be on TANF. And without having access to those materials, women may use makeshift sanitation products. Same is true as it relates to diapers for infants. Such practices can lead to dangerous physical health impacts such as vaginal and urinary tract infections, severe reproductive health conditions, and toxic shock syndrome. We believe that this is a focused pilot project that will give us additional information. Would ask for your support of this legislation. Thank you.
Thank you. Additional proponents. Additional proponents for House Bill 1123. None online. Okay. Additional proponents. Closing that out, we'll call for opponents. Opponents on House Bill 1123.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. My name is Kate Schnabel with the Bureau of Finance and Management. As you've heard this morning, House Bill 1123 would appropriate $2.5 million in general funds for a pilot program to provide menstrual hygiene products and diapers for qualifying individuals who receive TANF benefits. While we understand the challenges that these individuals are facing, I'd like to provide some background on the logistics of the pilot program and raise some concerns about the bill. First, TANF recipients can already purchase these products with their benefits today. Within TANF guidelines, there are very limited spending regulations allowing recipients to purchase essential needs. Additionally, tracking all requirements laid out in the bill would need to be done manually. Section 2 of the bill would require DSS to ensure that the additional payments are only used for diapers or menstrual products. DSS is not able to see what products are purchased with TANF benefits, so any tracking would require TANF recipients to submit receipts monthly that show proof of purchase. As a pilot program, it indicates that this would likely become an ongoing expense. If TANF funds are expected to be used for the ongoing costs, TANF benefit reductions may be necessary to all program participants. Alternatively, ongoing general funds may need to be allocated to DSS to support this program in the long term. The creation of a pilot program like this makes us question what types of products will we carve out as needing additional funding in the future. TANF cash payments are supplemental benefits, not meant to cover the entire monthly cost. The cash benefit can be used on anything they need: transportation, clothing, household items, like menstrual hygiene products or diapers. TANF recipients are often also enrolled in various state programs that further assist them with their monthly expenses, like the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, Medicaid, and the Child Care Assistance Program. There are also community resources that help individuals with needs. For example, the 211 Helpline Center offers a list of community resources. With these programs, TANF recipients receive a variety of assistance for a variety of needs. While we recognize the importance of supporting South Dakotans in need, TANF is intentionally designed as a flexible and supplemental benefit that allows recipients to prioritize their own essential needs. This pilot program would add administrative complexity and create potential ongoing funding obligations beyond the original intent of TANF. For these reasons, I ask that you please oppose House Bill 1123. Thank you, and I'll stand by for questions.
Thank you. Additional opponents. Are there any additional opponents? House Bill 1123. Additional opponents? Seeing none. Rebuttal from the prime sponsor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Representative Caden Whitman, District 15. I'd like to briefly address the concerns that were raised, particularly around cost, implementation, and precedent, because I do believe those are valid questions for this committee. First, yes, TANF dollars can technically be used for these products already, but like I said, TANF benefits are extremely limited. When a family is choosing between rent, utilities, and food, hygiene items are typically one of the first to be sacrificed. This pilot is not about expanding lifestyle benefits. It is about evaluating whether addressing two essential needs improves family stability and workforce participation. Second, implementation. I understand the department's concern about tracking and verification. which is exactly why this bill was brought as a pilot program with flexibility. It allows DSS to determine the most workable approach within a defined scope. If administrative burden outweighs benefit, we will know that at the end of this pilot, because the bill requires reporting back to us as a legislative body. And I would also just make a note, Mr. Chair, it is interesting to me that DSS is not here to oppose it if it would cause them such heartburn to enact this. Appropriations should not shy away from pilots simply because they require a thoughtful setup. Pilots exist for us to test feasibility before scale, and I believe this is a contained investment with an off-ramp should this not serve to support South Dakota. Third, future obligations. This bill includes a sunset clause. It does not bind a future legislature to making a decision in perpetuity. If it proves inefficient or unsustainable, this program ends. If it proves effective, we will have real data to inform a future decision. That is at its heart, fiscally responsible policymaking. And finally, on precedent. This does not open the door to unlimited carve-outs. It addresses two extremely specific health-related essentials that directly affect daycare attendance, school participation, and workforce engagement. Those are areas where the state already invests significant dollars. Preventing disruption upstream is often less costly than responding downstream. We all know this. This is a modest, time-limited test. It gives us information, it limits risk, and it centers family stability in an extraordinarily practical way. I respectfully ask for your support. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. I'll open it up for committee questions. Representative Moore.
Yeah, I think just before Mr. Schnabel for the state. If I got your name wrong, I apologize. So I think as this past summer, I just need to get refreshed. Did we cut some funding to TANF, or did the department themselves cut some money to that program?
Mr. Chair, Kate Schnabel, BFM. Yes, we did.
How much was that?
In FY26, we reduced $5.3 million in the general fund budget for TANF in excess of the required grant match. And then this past summer, there was the 10% benefit reduction.
Okay, thank you.
Additional questions from the committee. Representative Mucky.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Maybe not a question, but a comment. On that, I will say there was a general fund reduction of $5.3 million, but there was a replacement of $5.3 million in federal funds. So the 10% reduction was in addition to the changes we did to hold things flat.
Representative Mucky, I apologize. I have had a sidebar. Could you repeat what you just said?
Always happy to, Mr. Chair. So just to clarify that last response, $5.3 million was reduced out of the general fund budget, but it was replaced by $5.3 million in the federal budget. Federal spending authority was pulled from our TANF reserve fund to match that $5.3 million. So technically, as a legislature, we did not approve a cut to TANF.
Okay. Any further questions? Any further questions from the committee? Representative Jorgensen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. For the sponsor? So I'm just wondering, so this is going to sunset, so this is a year, or when will it sunset? Thank you.
Mr. Chair, this is a 3-year pilot program that would kick off on July 1st of this year and sunset 3 years from this July.
Okay, very good. So no further questions. We're going to close public testimony. I did talk to the sponsor. We are going to defer action on this to a later date. We've just received last night our one-time priority list, and to be fair, we need to go through that list and reconcile how we're moving forward. So we will be deferring action on House Bill 1123. Representative Mucky.
Mr. Chair, I move we adjourn.
Sorry.
I'll just withdraw my motion.
Okay, please withdraw your motion. Thank you. Regarding House Bill 1098, was there an amendment that you needed to have moved prior to getting a fiscal note? I was just made aware of that. On House Bill
Mr. Chair, that
1098.
That amendment was moved in its first committee hearing. Is it
Okay.
not reflected online? Oh, I apologize. I believe it was. Mr. Chair, I may have to go back and check my notes. I thought this was moved in committee. It was not moved in committee. Mr. Chair, may I move this amendment at this time?
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
Or,
I will.
Representative Mucky.
I move Amendment 1098A.
Okay, motion by Representative Mucky, second by Representative Auk.
Thank you, Mr.
On
Chair.
Amendment 1098A, discussion on the motion.
No discussion.
No discussion? Any further discussion on that? Okay, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. All right, the fiscal note will be on 1098 as amended is the fiscal note. Anything else for the good of the cause? All right, Representative Mucky, fire away.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move we adjourn.
Second.
Motion by Representative Mucky, seconded by Representative Auk. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
SDPB brings you closer to your government. With gavel-to-gavel coverage of the South Dakota legislature and in-depth reporting from Pierre. Good, useful, and full of wonder. SDPB. From early learners to lifelong students, SDPB inspires curiosity through trusted educational programs and resources for every stage of life. Good, useful, and full of wonder. SDPB. When South Dakotans need reliable information, SDPB is there providing updates and coverage that keep our communities safe and connected. Good, useful, and full of wonder. SDPB. SDPB celebrates South Dakota's student athletes with live coverage of SDHSAA state championships, sharing the excitement of hometown heroes. SDPB. Good, useful, and full of wonder. From choir to debate to theater, SDPB shines a spotlight on South Dakota's talented students through SDHSAA All-State Fine Arts.
Good morning, everybody. Senate Appropriations will come to order. I welcome everybody to Senate Appropriations. A reminder, cell phones turned to their off position. And I would ask everybody to please take a seat and have your phones turned to silent. If you plan on testifying today, please sign in at sdlegislature.gov. Press the people icon next to the agenda on the home page and fill out the form. Or you can do this directly on your phone by scanning the QR code or the agenda. Don't ask me what a QR code is. I don't know. So at this time, Mr. Secretary, would you call the roll?
Senators Miskimins. Here. Vilhauer. Here. Carly. Here. Voida. Here. Howard. Here. Foster. Here. Zickman. Here. Lapke. Otten.
Here.
8 present, 1 absent.
All right, at this time, we did the roll call. Approval of minutes, Senator Carly.
Yeah, I moved to approve the minutes of Friday, February 6th. We passed SB 195, SB 72, and amended and passed SB 73.
We have the motion that was read by Senator Carly, seconded by Senator Voida. Any comments? All those in favor of approving it, say aye. Aye. Those opposed? All right, it is, minutes have been passed. Okay. And Senator Miskibben.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move to refer Senate Bill 76 to Senate Commerce and Energy.
Second.
Senator Miskibben has made a referral motion on SB 76, seconded by Senator Voida. And this is being done because there's no appropriations in this bill, and so we'll send it back over to Commerce to have it worked out. And at this time, Mr. Secretary, would you call the roll?
All right, Senators Miskimins.
Aye.
Vilhauer.
Aye.
Carly.
Aye.
Voida.
Aye.
Howard. Foster. Zickman. Lapke. Otten.
Aye.
8 yeas, 1 absent.
All right, SB 76 is now being referred then to Commerce and Energy. Senator Miskibben, you have another motion.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move to refer Senate Bill 78 to Joint Committee on Appropriations.
Senator Miskibben has moved the referral of SB 78. It was seconded by Senator Voida. This is our General Appropriations Act, and it's just time to get it over to joint where we can deal with it. And with that, Mr. Secretary, would you call the roll?
Senators Miskimins.
Aye.
Vilhauer.
Aye.
Carly.
Aye.
Voida.
Aye.
Howard. Foster.
Aye.
Zickman. Lapke.
Aye.
Otten.
Aye.
9 yeas.
All right, that has then been referred to Joint Committee on Appropriations. All right, now I'm going to back up. I see we've got a couple pages in the room. Would you go up to the mic and tell us who you are, where you're going to go to school, dreams, aspirations?
Howdy, my name is Owen Kaufman. I go to Mitchell Christian School. I'm a junior. After high school, I will be going to Mitchell Tech. I've been accepted for the lineman program, and hopefully I'll do substation after that.
Good morning. I'm Grant Roth. I'm a senior at O'Gorman High School in Sioux Falls. This upcoming year, I'll be attending United States Naval Academy and studying engineering.
Excellent. And of course, your parents wouldn't be listening, so there are no girlfriends that I need to notify them on? No? All right. We will, I have to do that. My son, when he went to Vermilion, they've got evidently a great program down there for dating, and he got a great wife. So anyway, with that, we're going to move on then to SB 102, modify the distribution of gaming revenues. Good morning, Senator. I see that you have a amendment. Would you want that moved at this time?
Yes, this Randy Dybert, District 31 Senator. I'd like to move Amendment A, Alpha, at this time, if I could.
Senator Vilhauer has moved it. It was seconded by Senator Voida. All those in favor of amending 102 to 102A, say aye. Aye. All right, Senator, you may continue with 102A.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The bill as amended is a result of a long-term negotiation with departments within the state, and it changes the formula in Deadwood. It gives Deadwood a little haircut for a couple years, but in the long run, it distributes more gaming money when we have more gaming money to Deadwood. That's the context of the bill. It leaves the school district, the one school district, whole. It leaves the municipalities and the counties whole. So this has been a long-term negotiation, and this bill is a result of that as amended. So with that, I'll stand by for questions and let other proponents speak to the bill.
Thank you, Senator. Other proponents for SB 102? Other proponents? Good morning. Would you identify yourself and you may begin?
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. My name is Kevin Kuchenbecker. I'm the Planning, Zoning, and Historic Preservation Officer for the City of Deadwood, and I'm here to speak on behalf of Senate Bill 102 as amended to modify the distribution of gaming revenues. This year marks the sesquicentennial, the 150th, thank you, anniversary of the founding of Deadwood. It also is my 20th year as the Historic Preservation Officer for the City of Deadwood. I have a quick presentation to go through to explain why we're here today. Obviously, Deadwood was founded in 1876. We're a large heritage tourism destination, and many of you all and people across the state consider Deadwood South Dakota's playground. We've been entertaining guests since 1876. We're a National Historic Landmark designated by the Department of Interior on July 4th, 1961. We're known for our Western legends, whether it's Wild Bill Hickok, Calamity Jane, or Dora DeFran and Seth Bullock and Soul Star or Preacher Smith. Many rich histories and stories. We're proud of our unique architecture and hosts numerous special events and activities. It's where visitors can find their inner outlaw. We do offer year-round entertainment, outdoor recreation, winter sports, except for this year, we're not so lucky to have the snow, and then we're set with natural beauty. But that hasn't always been the case. Deadwood was dying. In 1987, we had the Syndicate Block fire, burned down part of Main Street. Deadwood was in dire financial shape with decades of decay, aging infrastructure. We didn't have enough water to fight the fire. Dilapidated and unsafe buildings, and our visitation was waning. So what happened? We looked at economic development. We don't have an industrial park. We don't have the big boxes. What do we have? We have what we celebrate today, our history. And so in 1988, the Deadwood You Bet Committee was formed and started a statewide petition to legalize gaming in Deadwood. That happened in November of 1988. We became the third jurisdiction in the United States to legalize gaming, behind the state of Utah and Atlantic City. That was a constitutional amendment under Article 3, Section 25. And I have highlighted in this section that the entire net proceeds shall be devoted to the historic restoration and preservation of Deadwood. 35 plus years later, that's what we're still doing. We're still preserving and restoring Deadwood. That it doesn't happen overnight, and there is no end to it. Well, some of the rehabs we did early on need continual upkeep. Today, we're proud to say Deadwood is a year-round destination. Our economic engine is heritage tourism. People come there for the history while they're there. They game, they dine, they visit our cemeteries, they shop, they do outdoor recreation, whether that's hiking, biking, cross-country skiing. This last weekend we had a fat tire bike race there. Special events. This last weekend we also had Mardi Gras. We have St. Patrick's Day coming up, but we have activities all the time. That's what makes Deadwood special. As you look at 2025, we had another incredible year with over 3.8 million visits from visitors across the nation. That's more than any other destination on this list, and we're proud of that. But we're a small town. We're only 1,347 people. We have big city expenses because of the visitation. Increased costs to preserve our history and our built environment. Escalating expenses to support the infrastructure and staffing. Our funds that we receive through gaming revenues are restricted, and we have bumpers on that. Those are set forth in the South Dakota administrative rules, and we follow those rules. That oversight is through the South Dakota State Historical Society, where we present our annual budget every year for consideration and approval. We also have oversight by the National Park Service, which watches national historic landmarks. We are restricted with economic and residential growth because of the federal lands surrounding Deadwood and not having those industrial parks or those big boxes that other communities in the state are able to generate revenues for their municipalities. So our sources are limited. So let's get to gaming revenues. The net municipal proceeds how that is defined is a very complex formula that has been unchanged since 1995. It's antiquated. Deadwood's gaming revenues continue to increase. But if you look at what we set aside for historic preservation, is within a few $1,000s of what it was in 2010. Now, inflation has had an impact on what we can do, the increased costs. Those gaming revenues are generated by a 9% gaming tax and a $2,000 device fee plus other miscellaneous fees through the South Dakota Commission on Gaming. Where we stand today, Deadwood was up 2.7% in gaming revenues in 2025. We had 2,700 plus slots, 85 gaming tables, 7 sports wagering locations, and all that took place in about 106 active gaming rooms and about 25 gaming halls. If you look at, and I just took a snapshot, 2005, 10, 15, 20, and 25. Our average has been about $7 million, and you can see here, 2010, we received 7.283, and in 2025, 7.288. So let's talk about how that complex formula is distributed. So those total taxes and fees generated $19,423,618. 8% of that generated $11.6 million. Now within South Dakota Codified Law 42-77B 48 and 48.1, that defines how those tax dollars are shared. 10% goes to Lawrence County, 40% to the South Dakota Department of Tourism. We used to fund about a third of their total budget through gaming revenues. That's down to about 22% because of some additional taxes that they've been able to obtain. And then the 50% goes to the Commission on Gaming, which leaves about $5.7 million. The other 1%, to get you to the 9%, goes directly to the state general fund, generating about $1.4 million. So then you take the gaming, the 50% of the 8%, plus the device fees, which generated $6.3 million. That also goes to the gaming fund. So that pot is now up to $12.1 million. Out of that, you take $100,000, and that's given to the South Dakota State Historical Society for preservation grants across the state. That also has been flat. Gaming addiction gets $30,000, and then the gaming administration expenses is about $1.6 million a year. Our cap is 6.8. You put that over into that slot, and then it goes through the formula further, leaving about $3.4 million, of which currently says 10% goes to Deadwood, 70% to the state general fund, 10% to other municipalities in Lawrence County, and 10% to the school districts. So if you add the 6.8 and the 488, you get to what our check was. Now, these numbers are obtained from the South Dakota Commission on Gaming's annual report from FY25, and it's available online. So what we've done is we've been here many times saying that we need to do something with the formula. And we sat down and we feel like we have something that we can all grow with. It is, as our good senator said, a haircut to Deadwood, but we believe in Deadwood's future that will continue to grow. What is in front of you with Senate Bill 102A leaves everything above the same. It just takes that balance distributed and puts 71% to Deadwood, 25% to the state general fund, 3.3% to other municipalities in Lawrence County, and 0.7% to the school districts in Lawrence County that do not receive state aid. So what that would generate for Deadwood using FY25 numbers, this is the haircut of 7.289. The state general fund remains pretty much as it is today. The other municipalities receives as it would be today, and then the one school district in Lawrence County, the Lead Deadwood School District, they do not receive state aid. This is about what they received. What it does is set forth that we grow together rather than the one entity or the state continuing to grow and Deadwood falling behind with deferred maintenance and infrastructure needs that we need to upgrade our community and maintain our commitment to the citizens of South Dakota who legalized gaming. So what this amendment does, Senate Bill 102 as amended, it does not impact other departments or agencies. It does not impact other government entities. It creates a balance for Deadwood's success as we go forward. It allows mutual growth for the State General Fund and the Deadwood Historic Preservation Fund. And as one legislator said a few years ago when we were in front of you asking for consideration of changing the formula, we need to feed the goose that lays the golden egg. Again, we have many partners across the state. We appreciate the support of the state legislature over the years. The departments, a variety of departments, we work closely with tourism, the Historical Society. A special thanks to Budget and Finance for working with us on this amendment, the Department of Revenue, Game Fish and Parks, the Gaming Commission, etc. At this time, I would stand by for any questions and would appreciate your support in Senate Bill 102A. Thank you.
Other proponents for SB 102A? Good morning. Would you identify yourself, and you may begin.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Roger Tellinghusen, registered lobbyist for the Deadwood Historic Preservation. I just want to reiterate what Kevin just shared with you. This is about trying to allow Deadwood to continue its historic preservation mission. As he said, for the most part, Deadwood's been capped since 1995. And this formula, which has been worked out with the Bureau of Finance and Management, is one that will allow Deadwood to grow as gaming revenues grow. Not to throw out a pun, but we're betting on the come here. And although they're going to take a bit of a haircut this year and maybe next year, it's our hope and expectation that as gaming revenues grow, Deadwood's funding to fund its historic preservation projects will continue to grow as well. There's a real need in Deadwood. For those of you that haven't been out there, you're not maybe aware of the immense number of retaining walls, for instance, that need repair and rehabilitation, and those are very expensive projects. And so each year, Deadwood kind of has to pick and choose which ones are the most serious, which ones do they need to, without fail, find funding for to address. Hopefully this formula will allow Deadwood to enhance its revenues such that it can address those very needy projects in Deadwood and keep this historic site continuing to prosper and grow as it's done for the last 25 years. I really want to give a shout out to the Bureau of Finance and Management. They came to us with this proposal. Our bill was different than, as you saw, from the original bill, and it was after many discussions with them and consideration that Deadwood said, you know, we can go along with this even though it means a shortfall for us or a smaller percentage for us in the near years, if you will. Again, betting on the come. We really hope that you can support this. We have been here a number of years in a row, and I think everyone agreed that Deadwood has a real need, but the funding just wasn't there. Well, this funding formula will allow Deadwood to grow. It maintains the level of support for the state projects, tourism, the state commission on gaming, and it doesn't penalize the municipalities in Lawrence County. The one school district that doesn't receive any state aid, they will still be made whole with the 0.7% that's called for in this proposal. The other school districts, which do receive state aid, would no longer receive these revenues, but that's the reason for the increase to 25% to the state general fund at the bottom of the formula. So, Mr. Chairman, I'd be happy to stand by for questions. I know that a representative from the Bureau of Finance and Management is here, but we would really appreciate your support. Thank you.
Thank you. Other proponents for SB 102A?
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. My name is Justin Smith. I represent the Tourism Coalition of South Dakota. This bill strengthens the original purpose of gaming in Deadwood, which was historic preservation and economic vitality. When voters approved gaming, it was never intended to be simply a revenue generator. It was a tool to preserve a national historic landmark and sustain a community built on heritage tourism. In Deadwood, historic preservation is not an enhancement, it is the product. The building, streetscape, and authenticity are what draws visitors from across the country and around the world. SB 102 provides greater predictability and stability in how gaming revenues are distributed once statutory obligations are met. Preservation projects are multi-year commitments. They require stable funding to plan responsibly and to leverage private and federal investment. Deadwood is a regional driver for the Black Hills tourism economy. Visitors who come for historic Deadwood stay in surrounding communities, dine in local restaurants, visit regional attractions, and generate tax revenue statewide. Ensuring that preservation funding remains strong protects not only one city, but benefits the entire state. This bill reinforces the original intent, and we respectfully ask for your support of SB 102. Thank you.
Thank you. Other proponents for SB 102A? Good morning. Would you identify yourself? And you may continue.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. Derek Johnson, representing the Bureau of Finance and Management. I just wanted to get up here to state that we've worked with the proponents on this amendment to really hold the general fund harmless in terms of revenues and state aid expenses, while also giving Deadwood more of the growth in the future as this revenue source hopefully continues to grow. I'll stand by for questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Other proponents for SB 106 or 102A? Other proponents? Last call for proponents for 102A. Seeing none, do we have any opposition, opponents for 102A? Opponents for 102A. And last call for opponents. Well, we've got another kumbaya moment. All right, we'll skip the, there is no rebuttal, so we will skip that end of it and move on to questions from the committee. Senator Howard.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So does anybody have a before and after column by column spreadsheet on this? Because I'd really like to see that. You know, before you got 40% going to tourism, after you got 40% to tourism, 10%, 10%. I want a direct comparison. And then follow up. Okay, so I heard that the general fund is going to be held harmless. Who's the loser in this? I mean, there has to be somebody who's losing if somebody else is gaining. So just walk me through that.
Thank you. I'll handle the second part of the question, if I may, while they scramble for the first part. Senator Randy Dibert, District 31. The Deadwood and the state of South Dakota are partners. So in theory, there's no loser. As this goes forward and the growth grows, we share the growth of the revenue. So we partner together to success at Deadwood. And all the other recipients are held harmless or have the same funding that they have. So to your question, I don't see a loser here because we're working in partnership.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Okay, but somebody for Deadwood to get more, and I'm not asking because I'm an opponent of the bill. I'm just asking because I like to know the numbers and I want to know for Deadwood to end up with more, somebody had to end up with less. And that's a reality, so I really want to know that.
I'll try one more time. Senator Randy Dibert, District 31. So in your question, the goal is to have more revenue to share. So Deadwood would get more, the state would get more. Nobody gets less. And it's depending on the growth in the gaming industry.
Go ahead.
Thank you. Then why change the formula?
Well, if I may, Randy Dibert, District 31, we're changing the formula so Deadwood gets some more money than they're getting now for historic preservation. They have not got an increase, as you saw in the figures, since 1995, holistically. They also have had to reduce because they're not getting the shared revenue from more gaming revenue. They've had to reduce the outside of Deadwood grants. The outside of Deadwood grants go to other cities like Hot Springs, Sioux Falls, Aberdeen that have historic districts. They've had to cut back on that because they have not had an increase in revenue. So the agreement or the partnership is when more money is generated from this, they share in that generation. So nobody takes less except Deadwood the first 2 years. So they lose the first 2 years, but we're in gaming, we're in the long game. So over time, the more gaming revenue will be shared.
Follow up? Okay. But here's the pie, and the pie is divided up percentage-wise, 40% tourism, okay, percentage-wise. Yes, the pie can grow, okay? But if you're saying nobody's losing, then why change the percentages? So I guess I want to know how those percentages are changing. Somebody's getting a higher percentage and somebody's getting a lower percentage? Because otherwise the percentages would stay the same. So if one percentage is going up, the other percentage is going down, I would consider that the loser in a sense. Yes, the pie can get bigger and everybody makes more, but do you know what I'm asking?
Mr. Chair. Yep, Senator, good question, and I understand the question. I believe the pages are
Identify
making.
yourself.
Derek Johnson with the Bureau of Finance and Management. I believe the pages are making some copies of a spreadsheet that hopefully you'll find helpful. So to the previous speaker's point, the way these percentages are set is to really hold everyone harmless, give them the same amount of revenue in fiscal year 2027 where this would potentially take place. We looked at the amount in FY25 that Deadwood received, the other municipalities in Lawrence County, the state general fund, the school districts. And to further elaborate on the school districts, there are 3 school districts that receive funding currently under this current formula: Spearfish, Meade, and Lead Deadwood. Now for Spearfish and Meade losing that funding, since they receive state aid, they would receive, between the two of them, about $260,000 less from this revenue source, but the state aid to K-12 schools via the general fund would pick up that difference as the formula works and we make all of those things whole. So we accounted for the general fund increase there in that 25%. Now to answer your question, in the future now, the general fund will be receiving less of the growth because under the current formula, we've got that cap of 6.8, and then everything that spills over is currently 70% to the general fund, I believe, 10% to the city of Deadwood, 10% to the other municipalities, 10% to the school districts. Now, readjusting these percentages, we're keeping everybody basically at what we budgeted them for in fiscal year 2027, but going forward, if this revenue source grows, however it might grow, Deadwood would now get 71% of that growth rather than 10. Really, they're getting 10% right now. So everybody is made whole in the short term. In the long term, Deadwood's revenues grow really at the expense of the general fund's revenues growing. I hope that answers the question.
Other questions? Senator Carley.
Yeah, for Mr. Johnson. Just to follow up on that. And so you have no concerns about that come 2027 and beyond, that reduces the funds coming to the state part of your department?
Mr. Chair, in working with the proponents of this bill, as the bill was originally, of course, we would have been opponents to that shift. That would have affected the general fund in the short term in FY27, FY28. In working with them with these percentages, again, this essentially keeps the general fund whole in fiscal year 27. And in order to come up with a solution, we were supportive of this idea of giving Deadwood more of the growth in the future, while holding the general fund harmless in the short term, not receiving as much growth in the future, but still some, 25% of the growth.
Senator Howard.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Okay, just Mr. Johnson. So state fund is getting 70% right now, is that correct?
Mr. Chair.
Of whatever.
That's correct. The Deadwood gets the
Identify
first
yourself again.
Derek Johnson, Bureau of Finance and Management. My apologies. The first 6.8 million goes to Deadwood under the current formula. And then after that, the spillover goes at the 70, 10, 10, 10 split.
Okay, follow up. So we're going from 70 to 25 in general fund.
Mr. Chair. Yeah, for the spillover, yes.
Okay, follow up. are we at all concerned? I mean, it sounds like in the short term, everything's gonna be fine, but we are losing revenue in the long term. Are we at all I mean, I'm just kind of pushing on that a little bit because, you know, we heard from the Economic Advisory Board or whatever that short-term things do look pretty good, but long-term, maybe not so much. And as the feds shift more of the costs of programs onto the state, I mean, we're gonna be picking up a lot of those costs in the future that we aren't picking up right now. So how, I mean, okay, short-term it looks good, but long-term, you know.
Mr. Chair. Yep, understand the question. To clarify, the general fund will not lose funding in the future. Because when we talk about the spillover percentages of 70, 10, 10, 10, that's for anything above the 6.8 million. Under this new formula, the general fund will receive 25% of all of it. And maybe if I could just walk through, I think you all have this handout. I want you to focus on the right side of the spreadsheet. The left top is FY24, but if you focus on the top right, based on the FY 2025 receipts, Deadwood received about just under 7.3 million. The school districts 330,000. The other municipalities, 330,000, and the general fund, $2.3 million. And so if you were to just look at the amount, including the 6.8 plus the spillover, the percentages were 71% for Deadwood, 3.2, 3.2, and then the general fund, 22.6%. Now, directly below that is the school district distribution of the amounts that went to Lead Deadwood, Spearfish, and Mead, with Spearfish getting the majority, then Lead Deadwood and Mead just a little bit. That totals to the 330. Now at the bottom with the box around it is the new proposal, and this is just based on FY 2025 revenues. Now the first thing you might notice is that the general fund is going from 2.3 million to 2.566 million. Now the reason for that is because now under this new proposal, Spearfish and Mead would not receive those general funds that total to about $260,000 between the two of them. However, they do receive state aid. And these receipts come in, they're kind of counted just like property taxes. So they're local effort. And as that local effort is taken away, now the general fund has to pick up the share. And so when we set the general fund percentage, we really looked at that 2.315 plus 253,000 plus 8,000, because the general fund will have to pick those amounts up in the general fund. And so really when you add those numbers up, I think, you know, it sums to about the total of where the general fund would work out at 25%. With Lead Deadwood, the school district that does not receive state aid, if they were to lose that funding, it truly would be a cut to them because they don't receive state aid. They generate more revenue with property taxes and with these other revenue than the formula would determine that they need. And so if we were to take that funding away from Lead Deadwood, then it would feel like a cut to that school district. And so that's why they're included there. But again, the general fund is made whole looking forward in the short term. They would receive less growth in the future, but we would not expect the general fund to be cut because we fully expect this revenue source to continue to grow, and the general fund would receive 25% of that growth. Long-winded, but I hope that helps.
Follow.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Did you guys look at how this will impact the state aid education formula for everyone else? I mean, is everyone else going to essentially see higher mill levies because we're now picking up a higher part of that?
Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, I don't have those numbers. Could certainly follow up with those, looking at $260,000 on a state aid formula that's over $1 billion. I think it would be very minimal if it had any effect on the levy at all.
Senator Carley.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. So I think it sounds like philosophically it would increase it, maybe a small amount, but it would increase that levy. Just even though you don't know the numbers, if one's decreased, then the other one has to increase, correct?
Mr. Chair, Yeah, I would have to look at the numbers, you know, as we're running that state aid formula on a statewide level, trying to set that state share, and with those levies moving and rounding, it's not necessarily linear, and so I don't know. But to your point, philosophically, if the state share remains the same, and so it's something we would have to look at.
Follow. And just one more, on the other track. So I've never met revenue the state doesn't want to receive. So I'm just curious why in 2-3 years, the state's okay with that dropping. I realize it's whole for the first couple of years, but what's your feeling why it's okay? In fact, I see some of the reasons, some of the benefits that it should go to Deadwood. So I actually see some of that, but I'm wondering what BFM sees as, hey, we're okay relinquishing that revenue because why? What is the reason you're okay with that?
Mr. Chair, Derek Johnson, Bureau of Finance and Management. Yeah, again, we don't see this as a loss in revenue to the general fund. Right now, if we're looking at those numbers of $10.3 million, we're making the general fund whole. Now, if we were to fast forward several years from now, and there's essentially to that pie, there's $2 million added, right? So we're at 12.266 at that point in time. That additional $2 million, the general fund would receive 25% of that, so $500,000. So unless gaming revenues decline, the general fund will not decline.
Senator Howard.
It won't decline, but it wouldn't necessarily grow as much as it would otherwise, correct?
Mr. Chair, correct.
Any other questions? All righty. Since there are no more questions, we'll close this part down. And I'm going to defer action on this until we get our feet under us with some of our revenue. And we'll pick it back up on, I believe I'm going to be scheduling this for, stay tuned. We will move on then to SB 106, modify the amount of required to be set aside for extraordinary expenses incurred in providing special education programs. Is a good senator out there? I take it you're a proponent.
I'm a proponent, yes, sir.
Let's,
Want me to pitch it? I'm not Senator Sauter. I'm far from it, but I can pitch the bill until she gets here if you want.
let's do that.
Okay. Morning, Mr. Chairman and members of the Senate Appropriations Committee. I'm Diana Miller, registered lobbyist for the Large School Group. And as I stated, I'm not Senator Sauter and don't want to be right now, but I certainly will help you pitch the bill, and if she arrives, we'll welcome her here with open arms. First of all, this particular bill deals with the Extraordinary Cost Fund for special education. The Extraordinary Cost Fund is an integral part of the special education program and funding for our state. And there are two components of it, and then I'll go back and go to my testimony if that's okay with you, Senator. What it asks for is in Section 1, it talks about two things, setting aside $5 million of the state for special education appropriation for this special fund, the Extraordinary Cost Fund. The second thing it asks in the bill is that in 2027, we would start attaching this to the index factor, much as you do with the state aid formula. And I'll talk about the reasons for those two particular changes. First of all, since 2014, the Extraordinary Cost Fund amount has been $4 million, and it hasn't changed. The costs have continued to go up in the extraordinary cost area and more students in special education, IEP, with some high-cost programs, and I'll talk about that. Why are we proposing this? First of all, last year, and I have the list for you, 20 schools applied for the Extraordinary Cost Fund, and you must make application to the Extraordinary Cost Fund Board. And let me talk about that particular board is made up of a variety of people. It is made up of the Department of Education, one from a school enrollment of 600 and over, one from a school district between 2 and 400 or 600, and one for 200 or less, and then a legislator. So that's the board that decides on the applications. Once the applications are submitted, there are criteria to submit the applications. First of all, you have to levy at the maximum amount for special education. And if you understand special education, there are different qualifying levies. You to levy for the lower amount and not qualify for the Extraordinary Cost Fund, it's at 1.28. If you want to participate in the Extraordinary Cost Fund because of high-cost programs, you have to levy at 1.574 per thousand of taxable valuation. So there's one safeguard built in. The second safeguard that's built in is that you cannot apply unless you have a high-cost student, which means the funding or expenditures for that special education student must be twice the funding level of that category. And I'm not going to insult anybody. That the fact of the matter is we have categories of funding in special education, disability categories, that are rebased every 2 years and are determine the cost between an average cost when they look at across the state. So you have that built in. Second of all, with this particular program, once the board decides, then you can, you have to look at what amount you receive. And as I stated, last year, 20 schools applied, and there wasn't enough money in the fund. The total of those 20 schools that applied totaled $5,143,528. So the schools that applied, those 20 schools had to be prorated down. And what they awarded or allocated was $4,454,498. Now, it was over $4 million, but there's carryover each year. So they had enough to carry over. The question we have with special education extraordinary cost, we don't always know the number of students that are going to come into a high-cost program and what it's going to cost. A student could move into a small school, and I'll give you an example for one of the smaller schools. Let's take Armour. Requested $825,000 for a high-cost student. They were allocated $68,234. So somewhere along the line, they have to make that up, and they'll usually take it out of their general fund, because we're not going to deny services to special education students against the federal law. Now, I don't mean to be negative on this, but the federal government has never funded to South Dakota an adequate amount to fund special education. They've funded it right around, and don't hold me to this number, but it's around 36%. So consequently, that's a problem. Take, for example, I'll take another community to show you that the board actually does rule on this. Beersford applied for $36,350. They received zero because obviously their application didn't qualify. And then you have a number of, in my school, I'll talk about my clients, the large school group, we have 3 that applied, and all of them were reduced significantly. Probably anywhere between 30 to 40,000, in some case 200,000 in the case of Mitchell, when they applied. Now, my concern is that many of these are smaller or average-sized schools that have applied in the past. You're going to see the larger schools coming into the formula and coming to the Extraordinary Cost Fund because of the cost of those special education programs. The other thing that I would mention with the Extraordinary Cost Fund, it is not misused. It is clearly actually used for the services, and special ed teachers, I think, do a wonderful job. I mean, I only have the highest praise for those people because they deal with the parents of the child in developing the individual education program, and they have to negotiate how to proceed with services, what services, and in some cases, we don't have programs if it's a very severe case, and we have to look to out-of-state placement if it's available. Sometimes it's not. So what I'm asking is that you look at, seriously consider this part of the whole program of public education and how it fits in with the program of not only general funding, but special education, and then this particular board. I think the safeguards are built in. The board has done an excellent job over the years, but we really want to look at making some modifications to make it such that we don't necessarily have to prorate it every year down. In years past, we've had a couple times when it was enough, and we did carry over some money, but lately that has not been the case. So, Mr. Chairman, as members of the committee, I will stand down, and I hope I've explained the bill adequately. If not, I'll try to answer questions, and there'll be other testifiers. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you. Other proponents for SB 106. Good morning. Identify yourself. And you
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. I, too, am not the senator who was to pitch this bill, but I did sleep at a Holiday Inn Express last night. My name is Rob Munson, Executive Director, School Administrators of South Dakota, and we did work with Senator Sauter on this bill over the summer and feel it is a very, very solid bill. It's a simple bill, as you can see, just one page. You like those here, right? The one thing Diana Miller didn't mention in pitching the bill is that the index factor is also applied to the carryover funds. The nice thing about this bill is, with any luck, this group or any other groups will not have to come back and ask for more money. It will continue to grow. I do represent all school districts in the state, and I think our biggest concern is that a number of the larger school districts have not yet had to come to this fund. And if they end up with a couple of high-cost students and they start to come to this fund, there certainly won't be enough money. So we're trying to put some safeguards in place that we have the monies to allocate, and we hope that you support this bill. I know there's a few people online that want to testify, at least one more in the room, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Other proponents for SB 106.
Mr. Chair, Mitch Richter, South Dakota United School Association. This is just basically a catch-up bill. You know, to apply for the Extraordinary Cost Fund, you have to be leveling at the max for special ed. There's always been carryover funds in the past. Since this has not increased since 2014, those carryover funds I don't think you're going to start seeing because the larger schools are going to start applying to this fund. So increasing the amount and then indexing it is basically a catch-up function. We would encourage you to support the bill.
Other proponents of SB 106, other proponents. Seeing none in the room, I think we've got some. If you can hear us, we're doing a little IT stuff here. We'll be with you in a second. All right. If you'd identify yourself, one of you can start off.
All right, just want to make sure that you can hear me okay?
We can.
Okay. Members of the Senate Appropriations Committee, my name's Dean Keeter. I serve as the director of the Corn Belt Educational Cooperative, a consortium of 9 school districts organized in 1979 to provide shared services with special education being our primary service. I am also the president-elect of the South Dakota Council of Administrators of Special Education, or SDCASE. I also testified today as a District 19 resident supporting Senate Bill 106, so I'm representing myself. The Extraordinary Cost Fund helps districts cover unusually high special education expenses that are not fully supported by the current funding formula. Since 2014, the Extraordinary Cost Fund appropriation has remained at $4 million despite significant increases in staffing, medical, transportation, and contracted services, not to mention inflation. Last spring, 20 school districts requested $5.14 million in ECF assistance. Approximately $4.79 million was available, but not quite all of that was used. But it did result in a prorating, leaving the districts to absorb about $352,000 out of their general funds. Remember, that's the same fund used for teacher salaries, benefits, custodians, et cetera. In addition to inflation, districts are seeing increased behavioral and medical needs, which are among some of the most expensive services required to meet our legal obligation to provide a free appropriate public education, or FAPE. Federal IDA funding continues to fall short of its promised 40% contribution and currently covers only about 13% of the per pupil special education costs. So out here in the field, our schools are again bracing themselves for a reduction in federal funds, or hoping for probably the best case scenario is level federal funding. The recommendation to adjust the Extraordinary Cost Fund for inflation was made as far back as the 2018 interim committee, but has not yet been implemented. Senate Bill 106 addresses that longstanding need. So this is not a new issue, but it is a growing one. I urge you to support Senate Bill 106 and also consider an emergency clause to address the anticipated higher Extraordinary Cost Fund applications this coming spring. You know, we never like to associate a price tag with a student. However, sometimes we have to do that to make sure our district special education funds are properly funded. And I see in the handouts that are online, one of the business managers put a couple examples in there of students that our districts see. And it's, you know, not just one district, but the Armour School District mentioned. I know there's some others that are online too that can talk to that. But that business manager's written testimony she submitted also pointed out a student arrived in the district about a year ago this time, and they would still yet have not received any special education funding for this very high needs out of district placement because the child missed the December 1st, 2024 child count, now has just appeared on the December 1st, 2025 child count. But of course, they will not see that funding yet this fiscal year. So as a former school board member and a longtime teacher once told me, we educate all kids, not just those that are easy to educate. So we are also dealing with the two most prized possessions that parents have, their children and their tax money. The Extraordinary Cost Fund helps provide a free, appropriate public education to some of the neediest of those children. So thank you for your time and consideration. I'll stand by for questions and urge you to support Senate Bill 106. Thank you.
All right, thank you. And whoever wishes to continue. Yep, just go ahead, Paul. You unmute yourself. You're muted. Now we should be able. No.
How about now? Can you hear me now?
No, we can hear you.
All right, just like the Verizon commercial. All right, good morning, everybody. My name is Paul Kuhlman, and I'm the physics chemistry teacher, superintendent, and special education director at Avon School District 4-1. I would like to thank you for the opportunity to testify in favor of SB 106. I would like to thank the legislature for its foresight in 1995 for establishing the Extraordinary Cost Fund as part of the state aid formula for special education. Over the years, adjustments have been made to this funding to address situations in which available appropriations are insufficient to fully reimburse districts. Without the support of the Extraordinary Cost Fund, the Avon School District would likely have been forced to pursue a tax opt-out many years ago to meet its mandated obligations. To provide helpful context, I would like to briefly explain how special education funding works. If you refer to Exhibit 1, which I had emailed you or submitted under the testimony, you will see the special education state aid calculator. The data included in this spreadsheet is fictitious and was entered solely to provide an example of funding. Similarly to the general state aid formula, the state first determines a district's calculated need based on students who fall into several distinct special education categories. These categories have evolved over time, with the most recent addition, Level 6, implemented in 2001. After the total need is calculated, the district's required local tax effort is subtracted, resulting in the amount of special ed state aid the district receives. However, at this point, no extraordinary cost funding is included. What is not reflected in the state aid calculator, however, are additional costs required to meet the services outlined in a student's individualized education plan, IEP. These IEPs are governed by federal mandates under the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, IDEA, and may include highly costly services such as placement in residential treatment facilities. In many cases, category funding does not fully cover a student's actual expense. For example, if a student requires a full-time aide at a cost of $32,000, but the assigned category provides only $18,000 in funding, the district is responsible for covering the remaining balance. These gaps compound quickly, particularly in districts with large number of high-need students or placements in residential treatment centers. Additionally, two eligibility categories, specific learning disability, SLD, defined as a neurological condition affecting basic psychological process related to language, and other health impairment, OHI, commonly associated with ADHD, are only funded at a level 1. These disabilities often exist on a spectrum, with some students requiring significantly more individualized instruction and support than others. I understand that separate legislation might be submitted to help address these concerns. In May of 2025, districts classified as high-cost programs were notified that due to requests exceeding available funding, approved applications to the Extraordinary Cost Fund would be reimbursed at only 90%. I attached an Exhibit 2 for that for Avon. It's important to note that the underlying expenses are federally mandated under IDEA, and any portion not reimbursed becomes the responsibility of the local district. This shortfall has the potential to cause significant financial strain through no fault of the district. As shown in Exhibit 3, over the past 10 years, Avon has received more than $2 million in extraordinary cost funding. In FY25 alone, as stated, 20 school districts applied for reimbursement through the fund. It is reasonable to expect that both the number of applicants and total dollar amount requested will continue to increase as special ed expenses, particularly placement costs, continue to rise. Finally, the timing of this funding increases additional challenges. Districts must incur and pay these expenses up front, many months before reimbursement decisions are finally finalized in May. At present, Avon is carrying a deficit of approximately $103,000 in its special education fund while waiting confirmation of reimbursement amounts. Until that determination is made, districts are left in a position of financial uncertainty. This situation places considerable stress on local budgets, administrators, and underscores the importance of stable, adequately funding extraordinary cost reimbursement system. In Avon, as in all public schools, we welcome and serve every student who comes through our doors. The inclusion of all students enriches the diversity of our school community and allows it to more accurately reflect the broader population students will encounter beyond graduation. These inclusive practices foster empathy and understanding among general education students, as daily interactions help build meaningful relationships across the student body. Through these experiences, students gain a deeper appreciation that all individuals share similar feelings, dreams, and aspirations. The integration of special education students within the general education setting is a positive and important aspect of public education. It promotes acceptance, mutual respect, and a strong sense of community for all learners. This year, our school experienced the unexpected loss of one of our cherished special pirate students. The response of the Avon student body was deeply compassionate and unified, demonstrating the strong connections that have been formed. This moment served as a powerful reminder that life is precious and sometimes far too brief, reinforcing the value of kindness, empathy, and community within our school. However, it's an unfortunate reality that educating many special education students often requires resources that exceed the typical budgetary capacity of a public school. As previously noted, the education of these students is mandated under the IDEA Act. Accordingly, schools are legally obligated to provide all services outlined in an IEP, regardless of the level of local funding available to the district. For these reasons, I would like to sincerely thank you for your continued support in providing additional funding. I also respectfully urge you to support SB 106, which would allow this funding to continue and expand the funding. Without an increase in funding, districts may be forced to pursue additional tax opt-outs to meet these federally required obligations. Thank you for your time and consideration. I will stand by for questions.
Okay, thank you. Other proponents, DK? That's all I see.
Hi there.
Yep, go ahead.
Hi, Chair and members of the committee. My name is Shannon Smith, and I'm the Director of Special Services for the Brookings School District. Thank you for the opportunity to testify in support of Senate Bill 106. I appreciate the time with you, and I don't want to reiterate many of the things that have already been shared with you, but want to give you just some local examples for when the extraordinary cost dollars fall short. Districts must rely on core general funds to meet those mandated special education expenses, as we've heard from other proponents testifying, placing strain on overall operations. While necessary, these transfers reduce our ability to sustain essential education programs and reasonably plan for future needs. For example, in the Brookings School District projected budget in 2025-26, our district applied for $1,030,000 in extraordinary cost state funds. The state allocated roughly $980,000 to the district, leaving a funding gap of about $50,000 that the district had to use a general fund transfer to cover that shortfall. The demand for services exceeds our and many other districts' available funding. Some other examples too, where these costs are rising for school districts. The average cost for a student to be placed in an out-of-district placement for services can range from $120,000 to $150,000. When the district is able to secure an in-state placement. We unfortunately, for a student, were unable to get an in-state placement, and we had to use an out-of-state placement for a student, and that was estimated at about $500,000, and that's just the tuition costs. There are also therapy services provided that are billed separately and are in addition to that tuition rate. It can include speech therapy, occupational therapy, and physical therapy, depending on what the student qualifies for. If they need nursing services, that can be up to $10,000 a month, and then including transportation in on top of that. Senate Bill 106 helps ensure the Extraordinary Cost Fund can better fulfill its purpose to stabilize district finances, reduce reliance on general fund transfers, and allow districts to plan responsibly while continuing to meet the student needs. This investment supports both fiscal predictability and education equity. Thank you for your time and your stewardship of state resources and your continued support of South Dakota students.
Thank you. And our last proponent, I guess that would be a DK.
I think Dean already went, but I will go if you're okay with that, Mr. Chair. My name is Donovan DeBoer.
That is fine.
Mr. Chair, members of the committee, thank you again for the opportunity to talk to you today. My name is Donovan DeBoer, and I'm the superintendent of schools in Del Rapids, South Dakota. I'm here to speak in support of increasing South Dakota's extraordinary cost fund. I too will keep this brief and not reiterate some of the other stories, but just to give you an example of my school district, which I would say I'm somewhere in between Paul and Shannon, Paul and Avon, Shannon and Brookings. So I think you've got the gamut of South Dakota covered here. But in Del Rapids, our total special education expenditures have grown substantially since FY17. We were just around 1.5 million In FY '24, we're going to exceed $2 million. Last year, we applied to the Extraordinary Cost Fund for $184,000 and were granted $150,000. Currently, for this fiscal year, we're on pace for $357,000 for a request of extraordinary cost. One question that's come up is why has there not been a shortfall in recent years? And our prediction is that for several years, ESSER dollars masked that structural problem. Those dollars, as you know, through ESSER and COVID are gone. At the same time, federal IDA funding has been continued to decline as far as a percentage of actual costs. So districts are left to kind of float those dollars. I'll stand by for questions if you have any other, but again, I think most of what I have has already been talked about. Thank you, and I am fully supportive of SB 106 and appreciate your time today.
Thank you. Going back to the room, any other proponents on SB 106? Well, good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Chair and committee. Senator Stephanie Sauter from District 4. I apologize for my tardiness at the beginning of this SB 106. I am a proponent. I am not going to go through what everybody else said because, number one, I've visited with them personally. I know where they stand on this, and there's nothing that I can add that those who are on the front line and experiencing this every day in their school that I could add to that, except for the fact that these children, these students, on these IEPs and special education programs that cost so much money, we have to educate them through the age of 21. They're not just done at 18 when they graduate or when their class graduates. Federal law says we have to give them this support to the age of 21. And so I firmly believe that we need to increase this. Having been on there on the Extraordinary Fund Committee, breaks my heart when we can't give them the money that they need. And I don't believe that they're asking for money that they don't need. Their testimony has said that. They do what they can, but they can't do it all. When some bills are $600,000 plus, when out-of-state placement is in Ohio because they can't find a more suitable location closer to home, which they would prefer if they could. But right now, this is our situation, and we need to help them. Costs have gone up. Again, for a few years there, the cost did not go up because there was extra dollars coming from the federal level. Those are gone. And so I hope that by hearing this testimony, that we can see clear of increasing this fund and from now on. So if there's any other questions, please direct them to those who are on the front line, or I can try to answer them as best as I can. Thank you for your consideration.
And Senator, where are you from?
District 4.
All right. We've cleared the docket on proponents. Are there any opponents to SB 106? Opponents? Good morning. Identify yourself and you may begin.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. My name is Grant Judson with the Bureau of Finance and Management. This morning you have before you Senate Bill 106. The Extraordinary Cost Fund is in place to provide funding for extraordinary expenses incurred in providing special education. 3 types of applications can be submitted by a school district to receive extraordinary cost funds: high-cost program, high-cost student, and supplemental aid. Currently, $4 million of the state aid to special education appropriation is set aside annually for the Extraordinary Cost Fund. Any funds not expended out of the Extraordinary Cost Fund are carried over to the next fiscal year. There's a maximum amount of $5.5 million for the appropriation plus the carryover. In addition to the Extraordinary Cost Fund, each special education disability level is rebased every 2 years based on the school district's actual expenditures for the previous 3 years. This makes sure that the per-student allocation for each disability level reflects what school districts are actually expending. By increasing the amount set aside for the extraordinary cost fund from $4 million to $5 million, it would require an additional $603,143 in general funds and $396,858 in property taxes. On average, 18 school districts submit requests to the extraordinary cost fund. Based on the governor's recommended budget, levies would increase from 1.229 to 1.234 for all three property classes. The increase in the levy affects all school districts, not just a few school districts that are receiving funding from the extraordinary cost fund. Additionally, increasing the $5 million set aside by the index factor would require additional ongoing general funds and property taxes each year. For these reasons, we ask that you oppose the bill. Thank you, and I will stand by for questions.
Other opponents of SB 106? Other opponents, SB 106, seeing none. Senator, who do you want to do the rebuttal? Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Senator Stephanie Sauter from District 4. Well, the testimony, I believe the proponents speak for themselves as far as the cost that it will cost to the state. I'm not going to say that's wrong either, but and I don't like to put price tags on our children. That's not right. That's not true. But the facts remain. It costs money to educate all our children, and especially the most vulnerable. And the costs are going up. I don't know how else we can address this except to put it back onto the schools. And when the cost of funding for schools is questionable, I know we do what we can to supply that. The schools are going to continue to fall behind in being able to fund the needed funding for these cases, and this extraordinary cost fund that's what it's there for. And if we don't have enough money there, then who do they go to? They have to go back to the taxpayers. So in either case, it's going to raise, according to the opponent, it's going to raise taxes. Well, you know what? If they have to opt out and find other funding, it's going to go back on the taxpayer as well. So you can look at it from one way or the other. But the bottom line is this money is needed for this extraordinary cost fund because the costs are getting higher for our schools and the coverage needs to be there. Thank you for your consideration.
Questions from the committee? Okay. All right. Well, since there are no other questions, then we would go on then to the next segment, but we're not going to. We will defer this to a date yet to be determined by me. And for the folks listening on air, this is common this time of the year. Does not indicate approval, disapproval. What it indicates is that we haven't got our marching orders yet. And so with that, SB 106 is going to be deferred.
SDPB brings you closer to your government. with gavel-to-gavel coverage of the South Dakota legislature and in-depth reporting from Pierre. Good, useful, and full of wonder. SDPB. From early learners to lifelong students, SDPB inspires curiosity through trusted educational programs and resources for every stage of life. Good, useful, and full of wonder. SDPB. When South Dakotans need reliable information, SDPB is there providing updates and coverage that keep our communities safe and connected. Good, useful, and full of wonder. SDPB. SDPB celebrates South Dakota's student athletes with live coverage of SDHSAA state championships, sharing the excitement of hometown heroes. SDPB, good, useful, and full of wonder.
Okay, We're back from recess. And we will move on then to the next on our agenda, which would be SB 222, to make appropriations for eligible water, wastewater, stormwater, and non-point source projects and declare an emergency. Good morning, Senator. Would you identify yourself and you may begin?
Good morning. My name is Chris Carr. I'm a senator from District 11. I have an amendment, Mr. Chair. I'd ask that the committee consider it. It's 222B is in the Big Sioux River.
All right, the amendment has been moved by Zickman, Senator Zickman, and seconded by Senator Voida. All those in favor of the motion on the amendment, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay, your SB 222 is now amended to B as in Baker.
Big Sioux River, whatever. Anyhow, good morning, Chairman and Senate Appropriators. Senate Bill 222 is pretty simple. I had mentioned that I had to get this bill in, but I was working out some details. These are the details in this amendment. First of all, I just want to say, once again, just to remind everybody, you know, I think the one thing that we take for granted is probably one of the most important things in our lives is water. And I think water is life. And that's true everywhere, not just in South Dakota. It sustains our farms, our communities, our economy. If we fail to protect it, I think we fail our next generation. Senate Bill 222, as amended, appropriates $2 million from the general fund for water, wastewater, stormwater, and non-point source projects. It also provides appropriation for $8 million for the statewide riparian buffer initiative projects. These are some of the best practices. There are current programs that are in place. The buffer initiative is the best practices at improving our surface water and protecting our surface water. So that's our lakes, rivers, streams, and the water, wastewater, stormwater, non-point source. You've seen that over and over. Every year we do a little something in the omnibus, and I'm told that that's approximately about $5 million. This adds $2 million more to that pot. There's always small communities that are dealing with these things, and when they have to take on those projects and they don't have this support, what happens? They end up having to fund it somehow in their communities, usually property taxes and other things within the school, their district, which increases their property taxes significantly. So this is adding some additional dollars to that pot. This bill is really about stewardship. Small towns can't carry that major infrastructure costs alone, as I mentioned. It provides that structured support and oversight and accountability that already exists in our current programs. The riparian buffers, again, protects our rivers and streams from the erosion and runoff in our fields. So we're improving water quality, we're strengthening our drought resiliency. I just think that this is a caretaker bill for our most important resource that we have in South Dakota. Respectfully ask for your support. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Other proponents for SB 222?
Mr. Chair, members of the committee, Andy Brules with the Department of Agriculture and Natural Resources. DANR would ask for the committee's support on this bill. The funding in this bill for water, wastewater, solid and non-point source infrastructure is good. It follows the board process. The riparian buffer initiative funding is something that the department has been working on for the last several years. It's a beneficial thing for water quality throughout the state. This bill will allow us to continue doing some of those good positive things, has some additional money than from what we currently would have in the omnibus bill process. So we do support this bill and the fact that it follows our existing process and programs in place. Thank you, and I'll stand by for questions.
Thank you. Other proponents for SB 222B? Other proponents? Last call for proponents of SB 222B. Seeing none, we'll move on to opponent testimony. Opponent. Calling one more time for opponent testimony on Senate Bill 222B. All right, seeing none. guess we can do away with the Senator rebuttal and move on to the committee questions. Senator Vilhauer.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm not sure who to ask this question of, but I do have a question about the riparian buffer strip project. The Big Sioux River goes right through Watertown. And since this project was put in place a number of years ago, it has not been utilized to the extent that was hoped for. Any response as to why that is not the case?
I guess
please
maybe
id-
ask for,
please
excuse me,
identify.
sorry, Andy Brules with Department of Ag and Natural Resources. If I could maybe just ask for a little clarification. You said it hasn't been utilized to,
To me, okay, when I was in the city council, I sat in the Upper Big Sioux River, the Upper Big Sioux watershed project. And the riparian buffer strip project just did not seem to be catching on. In fact, they were looking at some local dollars going in that would help enhance, activation or participation in this.
Mr. Chair. I think in the early years of the riparian buffer strip, and this goes back to, I believe, 2021 Senate Bill House Bill 1256 that Senator Carr had at that time that provided $3 million for Big Sioux riparian buffer strip initiative. The early years of that did take a little time to get some traction. Those funds did all get expended by the deadline this last summer and went towards the appropriate uses. Additionally, in the last few years through the American Rescue Plan Act, the Board of Water and Natural Resources has provided a total of $7 million for statewide riparian buffer initiative efforts. Those are ongoing. However, we anticipate, or we're sure by the end of this year, those monies will have all been expended also. Okay. So this would be additional money to continue those efforts.
May I? Mr. Chair, may I add?
Mr. Pro Tem.
Thank you, Senator Chris Carr, District 11. I think that was a good answer. What we've experienced, when I was preparing 1256 in the year or two leading up to that, I really looked at what are some of the best practices out there. And we looked at some different buffer strip ideas. We wanted to allow, at the time, the Department of Ag and Natural Resources to explore some other ideas. And like was stated, it took some time, but they came back and said, this is still the best practice. This is where we've seen major reductions in the water quality, bacterial load, things like that, is these buffer strips. The other thing I want to clarify, I joked about the Big Sioux River. These dollars are not just for the Big Sioux watershed. This is statewide dollars. They can be used in a variety of different areas, goes through the same board and process, just so everybody's clear.
Senator Vilhauer.
Just to follow up, the only reason I referenced Big Sioux, you referenced it, and it goes right through my home community. Yeah. But also a comment, I am all in favor. I think it's a wonderful program. I've seen the results of where it has been utilized, that it's got potential results, great potential results coming from it.
I think what we've seen too is the education process and educating. We're seeing the farmers, the ag community, the next generation is really interested in some of the I call it technology, but it's really basic technology and implementing it. And we're seeing more acceptance and less resistance to these ideas. That they're seeing the benefits of it as well. And so that's where I think there's been kind of a slow takeoff, but that's kind of with a lot of, you look at any product and its cycle, its life cycle, you got to get it off the ground. It takes education and training and implementation to get it off the ground. And I think that's where we're at. We've seen it. We're experiencing the results of it. And we're starting to see individuals embrace it in those areas. We just need the dollars to fund it.
Questions from the committee? Questions? All right. Seeing no other questions, we will then move on then to discussion, but we're not going to discuss anything because we're going to defer it. And we will get that, put it on the slate here into the future. All right. Is there anything else for the good of the cause? Senator Voigt, I see that you're itching for one.
Mr. Chair, I move we adjourn.
It's been moved by Senator Voida to adjourn. It was seconded by Senator Zickman. All those in favor of adjournment, say aye. Aye. Those opposed, we stand adjourned.
SDPB brings you closer to your government. With gavel-to-gavel coverage of the South Dakota legislature and in-depth reporting from peer. Good, useful, and full of wonder. SDPB. From early learners to lifelong students, SDPB inspires curiosity through trusted educational programs and resources for every stage of life. Good, useful, and full of wonder. SDPB.